Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our portfolio website design series into a single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video I'll show you how to basically design this portfolio website from scratch using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. And we'll also see how to host this online, and in the end I'll also show you how to add this as the homepage of your Blogger website. And this website is completely responsive, and I will also provide the source code of this website in the description of this video, and you can use that and modify it to use in your own websites. So let's get started. So first of all, let me show you the design. So this is how the hero section looks. We have the nav bar on the top, and then we have this hero section. And on the right side, we have some details about us. And if you scroll down, we have this call to action button. And then we have this about me section. And we also have this button to download the CV. And if you scroll down, we have another section where we have listed the services that we offer. And each of these headings will have these details. And if we hover over these, we will have these details displayed over here. And we'll also have a different image displayed for each of these headings. And then if you scroll down, we also have this section where we have the list of the brands that we have worked with. And then if you scroll down, we have another section for portfolio, and we have these different portfolios displayed over here. And we can hover over each of these, and we'll have the information about it displayed over here. And then we also have this button to view all the projects. And if you scroll down, we have another section where we have the design process displayed over here. And we have this displayed over here as different steps, and we have some text over here. And if you scroll down, we have the testimonials section, and this is going to be a slider. And then if you scroll down, we have this contact me section where we have this form where the user can send message to us. And then if you scroll down, we have the footer, and then we have the copyright section. So this is what we're going to design in this tutorial series, and we'll also add some animations to this, and we'll also make this mobile responsive. Right, here I have created this folder called portfolio website, and I just opened it with VS Code. Now let's create the necessary files. So let's create a new file called index.html. Let's create another file called style.css, and let's create one more file called main.js. And let's start with the index.html file. Now in VS Code, you can just type exclamation and press tab, and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. And here in the title, let's type welcome. And let's link our CSS file over here. So let's type link and press tab, and here let's type style.css. And here in the body, let's link the JavaScript file. So let's type script:/src and press tab, and here let's type main.js. Now the first thing we will do is we will get the fonts that we need. So if you go to our design, these are the two fonts that we need. We need to have this inter font, and then there is this another font called philosopher. So we need to get the bold version of this font. And we need to get the bold and the regular versions of inter font. So for all the headings, we can see that we have this philosopher font. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to Google Fonts. All right, so here I'm in fonts.google.com, and let's search for the fonts that we need. So let's type inter. And here we have the inter font. So let's select that, and let's click on get font. And then we need to have one more font. So let's search for philosopher. And this is the font, so let's click on get font for this as well. And now we can see we have these two fonts. We have the inter font and the philosopher font. And now if we click on this get embed code button, we have this link that we can use in our HTML, or if you go to the import, here we can use this code in our CSS. We'll just use the link. And here we can see we have the philosopher font and the inter font. And for the philosopher font, I'll just select the bold version. So I'll just select this one right here. So let's click on change styles, and let's deselect the other ones. We'll just select bold 700. And here we can see we have the bold 700 font selected for philosopher. And now let's go ahead and copy this link from here. So let's click on copy code. Let's go to our VS Code, and let's paste the link over here inside the head section. Alright, so now we have added our fonts to our website. Now I'll just go ahead and copy and paste the images that we need for the header. So I'll just create a folder called images, and I'll just copy and paste the images that we need. So here I have pasted all the images that we need for the header. So we have the Behance logo, the dribble logo, and we have the hero image and the right arrow. So here we have these two logos, and we have the hero image and this right arrow for the button. Now I will leave the link of a GitHub repository where you can find these starter files over here, which are these images. So you can just go ahead and follow along with me. Now the first thing we will do is we will start writing the markup of the header. And if you go back to our design, here we can see that we have max width set for all the content. So here we can see that we have this gap from the left and the right sides. So even if we zoom out, this will have this fixed max width. So for that, we'll create a wrapper division. So let's create a division and let's give it a class of wrapper. And in the CSS, we will add max width for this. Now the wrapper, we will first of all add this nav bar. So let's create a nav element. And in this, we need to have the logo on the left side and these menu items on the right side. So let's create an anchor tag, and let's also give it a class of logo. And here in the logo, let's type designer. And after that, we have this dot. Now there are different ways of creating this dot. We can also use an after selector for creating this dot. I'll just use a span and just type a full stop, and we can just style it in the CSS. So let's create a span, and let's give it a class of dot. And here just add a full stop. And now let's go ahead and open this in our browser. So I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you have this installed, you can just right click over here in the HTML file and click on Open with Live Server. And here we can see that our content is displayed in the browser. Now let's go back and let's start adding the menu items. So here inside this nav, let's create a division with the class of menu items. Now in this, we'll create anchor tags, and here we will add the menu items. So let's type about. And then we have services, portfolio, and contact. So I'll just duplicate this. And here let's type services, portfolio, and contact. And here after the nav, let's go ahead and add a comment, and let's tap end of the nav. And after the nav, we need to create the hero section. So for the hero section, I'll just create a header, and let's give it a class of hero. So let's tap header, hero, and in this, we need to add a lot of elements. So the first thing we will add are these circles. So we can see that we have these circles over here. Now these are just some visual elements that can improve our design. So let's go ahead and add these 3 circles, and we will do that using spans, and we'll also give it a class of circle. And we have different circles, so let's add different classes for each of the circles. So for the first one, let's type circle 1, and we'll also have a common class called circle. And let's duplicate this, and we have circle 2 and circle 3, and we'll style these circles differently for the height and the width and the position, and all the other styles will be added to this circle class. Let's add all of these circles inside a container division, and let's give it a class of circles container, and let's add these inside here. Right now, the next thing we need to add is the image. And if we take a look at this image, we can see that we have this image overlay where we have this dark color over here on the left side, and it fades into this image on the right side. So for that, let's go ahead and create a division for the image overlay. So let's create a division with the class of image overlay, and we'll style it using CSS, where we will have this rectangle basically, and we will have a linear gradient color where we have a dark color on the left side and it fades into a transparent color. Right now, let's go ahead and add the image. So let's create an img tag, and for the source, let's type images/heroimage.png. So let's type images/heroimage.png. And for the alt, let's type hero image. And we'll also give it a class of hero image so that we can style it in the CSS. So let's type hero image. Right now, the next thing we need to add are these 2 logos for Dribble and Behance. So let's create a division for that, and let's give it a class of socials. And in that, let's create an anchor tag. And here in the href, I'll just type hash. Now here, instead of this hash, you can add the link of your profiles. And in this, let's create an img tag, and let's type images/dribble-logo.png. And let's create one more anchor tag. And here is type img images/behance-logo.png. And here in the alt, we can just type dribble logo. And here we can just type Behance logo. Alright, now the next thing we need to do is create the H1. So this is the H1. We have modern, minimal, sleeker, this text displayed over here. So let's go outside this div for the socials, and let's create an H1. And here let's type modern, and we need to add a BR for a line break. And then we need to type minimal, and then let's type sleeker. So now if we go back to our browser, here we can see that we have all the content displayed over here. And for minimal, we have a different color. So we need to add a class for that. So we will add minimum inside a span. And we'll just give it a class of blue text. And here I'll just paste the ending tag. So minimal will be inside this span so that we can style it separately in the CSS. And then the next thing we need to have is this subheading. So let's create a division for that, and let's give it a class of subheading. And this will create paragraph for each of these text. So I'll just copy this text from here and let's paste it over here. And then we have another paragraph, and let's copy this text and let's paste it over here. And then lastly, we have one more paragraph. Let's copy this text and let's paste it over here. Now after this, we need to have this button. So we'll create an anchor tag for the button so that we can go to a different page when we click on this button. So let's create an anchor tag, and let's give it a class of btn. And in this, let's add this text of let's collaborate. Now after this text, we need to have this icon. So let's create a span for that, and let's give it a class of icon. And here let's create an img tag, and in the source let's type images / right arrow.svg. And now if we go back to our browser, here we can see that we have this button and we have this icon. Right now, the last thing we need to add in the HTML is this achievements section. So we have this experience, specialties, client served, and recognition displayed over here. So for that, let's create a division. Let's go outside this anchor tag, and let's create a division with a class of achievements. And in this, for each of the achievement, I'll just create a division with the class of achievement. And in the achievement, we need to have a heading and this text. So I'll just create an S3 for the heading. And here let's type experience. And let's create a paragraph for this text. And I'll just copy this. And let's paste it over here. And let's copy this achievement division and paste it 3 more times. And the next heading that we have is specialties. And let's copy this text and paste it over here. And then the next text that we have is client served. And here we need to have this text. So let's copy this and let's paste it over here. And then for the fourth one, we have recognition. Let's type recognition over here. And let's copy this text. And let's paste it over here. And here after the header, let's add a comment and let's tap end of the header. So with that, we have written the HTML of our hero section. And if you go back to our browser, this is how it looks. So everything is being displayed in the browser. Right here, I'm in my source code, and here we have linked our style.css file in the head section of the HTML. So let's start by writing the CSS. So let's go to the style.css file. And the first thing we will do is we'll create some CSS variables for the colors. So let's type :root, and this will be accessible throughout our website. So here let's type --, and let's call it dark color. And for this color, let's add a hex code of 05070A. And then for the accent color, let's set the color to 586-3F8. And let's add one more color for this yellow color that you see over here, and let's call it highlight color. So let's type highlight color, and let's add the hex code of FCFF3B. So we have added all the colors that we needed for the website. And now let's go ahead and add some reset styles. So let's type *, and let's also select the after and before selectors. of all the elements. And let's set the padding to 0, and let's also set the margin to 0. And let's also type box sizing border box so that we have the correct width and height for all the elements. And now the next thing we will do is we will target the HTML and we'll set the font size of all the elements. So if you go to the HTML file, here we can see that we have already added the links of the fonts. So here let's type font family and let's set it to Inter. So this will be the default font of our website. So if you go to our browser, here we can see that all the font has changed to Inter. Right now let's target all the paragraphs. So let's type P and we will add a higher line height for all this paragraph. So let's type line height and let's set it to 1.9 and let's set the font size of all the paragraph to 1 rem, and this is how it looks. Now let's go ahead and add a background color to the body. So let's type body, so I'll just add it over here, and here let's type background color and let's set the color to var dark color that we created over here. So now we can see that we have this dark background color for our website. Alright, now let's go ahead and target all the anchor tags, which are the links, and let's set the color of all the anchor tags to white, and let's also remove the underline. So let's type text decoration to none. So now we can see all these anchor tags have white color, and we also don't have any underlines for the anchor tags. Right now the next thing we will do is we will add a max width for the wrapper. So if you go to the HTML file, here we can see that we have created this division with the class of wrapper. That's because we wanted to have a max width added to all the elements. So here we can see that we have this max width, and even if you zoom out, the content will have this max width that you see over here. So for that we have added this wrapper division. So let's target that, and here let's type dot wrapper and let's set the max width to 75 rems, which is 1200 pixels. And let's also add a padding of 1.5 rem, and now if we add a background color, we can see the actual max width. So this is how the max width looks. We have a max width of 1200 pixels over here, and we need to bring it to the center. So for that, let's tap margin inline and let's set it to auto. And now we can see that the wrapper is in the center. And let's go ahead and remove this background color of red from here. Now let's also add some styles to the button. So we have the button in multiple places. So let's go ahead and style the button and make it look like this. So for the button, we have a class, and let's take a look at the class. So here we can see we have a class of btn. So let's target that. Let's type .btn. And let's set the display to inline block so that if we add margin top or padding top or bottom, it should be added to the button, because the button is basically an anchor tag over here and it is display of inline by default. So we need to add this margin of inline block, and let's set the background color to white. And here we can see we have the button. Let's also change the color of the text to the dark color. So let's have var dark color, and let's set the font size to 1 rem and font weight to 700. Let's also set text transform to uppercase. Now let's also add some padding. So let's type padding and let's set it to 0.75 rem. Now we need to have this text and this icon centered. So for that, let's go ahead and change this to inline flex, and let's set the align items to the center. And we have a little bit of spacing issue for this icon. So let's target the icon, and the icon is inside the span with the class of icon inside the button. So let's type btn icon, and here we need to type display of flex, and it will solve the issue. Now we need to have some gap between the text and this icon. So here for the button, let's type gap, and let's set the gap to 0.5 rem. Now when we hover over this button, we'll just have some basic animation. So let's go ahead and type btn hover, and we'll just bring it up. So let's type transform, translate y, and I'll just set it to -3 pixels. And here on the button, let's add a transition of all 300 milliseconds ease. And now if you hover over this, we can see that we have this hover animation. Alright, now the next thing we will do is we will style this nav bar. So if you go to the HTML file, here we have this nav element, and in that we have the logo, and we also have this menu items. So let's style this, Let's go ahead and add a comment. I'll just tap nav bar, and here let's tap nav, and let's set the display to flex, and we need to have this logo on the extreme left side and these menu items on the right side. So we need to type justify content space between, and let's also type align items to the center. All right, now let's style this logo. So for the logo, we have a class of logo. So let's go ahead and type dot logo, and let's set the font size to 1.5 rem. Let's set the text transform to uppercase, and let's set a letter spacing of 0.125 rem, which is 2 pixels. And this is how it looks. Now here we can see we have this dot, and if we go to our design, this dot has a different font size. So for that, let's go back over here, and in the HTML file we can see that we have added a span with the class of dot. So let's target that. In that we have this dot displayed. So let's go ahead and type logo dot, and let's set the font size to 3.75 rem, and let's set the color to var accent color, and this is how it looks. Let's also set the line height to 0. So now everything looks alright. Now let's also style these menu items. So here let's go ahead and type nav menu items, and let's set the display to flex, and let's add a gap of 3.75 rem, and let's tap text transform to uppercase. Now when we hover over these anchor tags, we need to change the color. So let's go ahead and type nav menu items a colon hover, and when we hover over this, let's type color var accent color, and let's add a smooth transition. So let's tap nav menu items a, and let's tap transition of all 300 milliseconds is. So now we can see we have this hover effect, and with that we have styled the nav bar of our website. Alright, now let's start with the design of the hero section. So let's go back to our source code, and here we can see we have this header with the class of hero. So let's target that. I'll just create a comment. I'll just type hero section, and here let's tap dot hero, and first of all let's set the color of all the text to white. So let's tap color white, and we'll also set a margin top over here. So if you go to our design, here we can see that we have this margin from the top. So let's add a margin top. So just tap margin top, and let's set it to 6.25 rem, and now we can see we have this margin top. Right, now let's go ahead and style this image. So if you go back to the HTML file, here we have this img tag with the class of hero image. So let's target this. It is inside the hero. So let's tap hero image, and first of all let's set the position to absolute, so that it is displayed according to our specific position, and let's set the top value to -10 rem, and we'll also set a height and width. So let's type height, and let's set the height to 43.75 rems, and this is how it looks. And from the left we will have a value of 27.5 rem. Now this image should be positioned relative to the hero, so that's why here in the hero we need to type position relative, and now we can say that the image is in the correct place. Now we want this image to be behind the other elements. So here for the image, let's tap z index, and let's set it to -2, and let's also add an opacity of 0.8. And now if you go back to our HTML file, here we can see that we also have this division with the class of image overlay. And if you go to our design, here we can see that the image starts from this dark color and goes to the color of the image. So for that, let's target the image overlay that we have over here. So let's tap hero image overlay, and we need to have most of these properties from here. So let's copy all of this and let's paste it down here. And for the left value, let's set it to 0 rem, and let's add a z index of -1. So this image overlay will be on top of the hero image, and we'll also set the width to 50 rems. And now if we add a background color, we can see that this is the image overlay. Now we need to have a linear gradient background color. So here let's tap linear gradient, and let's tap to right, and for the left color let's type var of dark color, and let's set it to 60%. and then let's tap transparent. And now if you go back here, we can see that this image starts from this dark color and goes to this color of the image. And I think we can decrease the opacity a little bit more. So let's go back, and here for the image, let's set the opacity to 0.6. Right, now let's go ahead and style this social icons over here. So let's tap hero, and if you go to the HTML file, we have this division with the class of socials. So let's tap socials, and let's set the display to flex so that they are one next to the other, and let's add a gap of 1.5 rem, and let's set a margin bottom of 1 rem, and let's change the size of these images. So let's tap hero, socials, img, and let's set the width to 2.5 rem. Right, now let's style these headings. So let's go ahead and type hero, and for the headings we have this h1. So let's target the h1, and let's set the font family to the philosopher font, and let's tap sans serif for the backup font. And now we can see we have the philosopher font added. Let's also set the font size to 8.75 rem, and let's set the text transform to uppercase, and let's set the line height to 1. Let's also add a margin bottom so that we have some space between this paragraph and this heading. So let's tap margin bottom, and let's set it to 1.5 rem. Right, now for this minimal text, we need to have a different color. So here we can see we have this accent color. So for that, let's go back, and here we have already added this variable called accent color. And if you go to the HTML file, here we can see that for the accent color, we have this span with the class of blue text. So let's target this. I'll just type blue text, and let's set the color to var accent color. And now we can see we have the correct color for this heading. All right, let's scroll down, and we have this paragraph over here. And for the button, we need to have a margin top. So let's go back to our CSS, and here for the button, we have added some styles. So let's also add margin block, which is margin top and bottom. And let's set the value to 2.25 rem, which is 36 pixels. And this is how the button looks. Right, now let's style this achievements section over here. So if we go to the HTML file, here we can see that we have this division with the class of achievements, and we need to position it on the right side over here. So let's go ahead and target the achievements division, and here let's type hero achievements. And first of all, we need to set the position to absolute, and we need to position it to the right side over here. So let's type right of 0, and now we can see that it is on the right side. And we also need to bring it to the top a little bit. So let's tap top, and let's set the value to 17.5 rem. All right, let's set a background color of RGBA 0, 0, 0 and 0.7, and let's set a height and a width for this. So let's tap height, and let's set it to 41.25 rem. Let's set the width to 28.75 rem. And we also need to add some padding. So let's tap padding, and let's set the padding to 2.5 rem. Now let's add a little bit of border to this. So let's tap border, and let's set the value to 4 pixels solid, and for the color let's tap RGBA 255, 255, 255 and 0.05 for the opacity. And this background should be blurred. So for that, let's go ahead and type backdrop filter, and let's set the value to blur 0.125 rem. And now we can say that the background is blurred. Right, now let's set the display to flex, and let's add some gap between these. So let's tap display of flex, and let's set the flex direction to column, and let's add a gap of 2 rem. And we need to also bring it to the center vertically. So let's tap justify content center, and now we can see it is in the center. Right, now let's style the elements inside this. So first of all, let's style the S3. So for the S3, we need to increase the font size a little bit. So here we can see we have S3 for all these achievements. So here let's type hero achievements S3, and let's set the font size to 1.5 rem. And let's set the font size for the paragraph. So below the S3 we have paragraph. So let's tap hero achievements P, and let's set the font size to 1.125 rem, and let's add a margin top of 0.5 rem. Right now we need to add this bullet on the left side for each of these achievements, and we will use before selector for that. So let's go ahead and type hero achievement : before. So here we can see we have this achievement class inside this achievements class. So here we need to add a content, and for example if I just type 1 2 3, here we can see if we go to our website, before all our achievement we have 1 2 3 displayed. Now we need to remove this content and we need to add a square. So let's set the height of the square to 10 pixels, and let's set the width to 10 pixels as well, and let's set the background color to var highlight color that we created as a variable. Now this before selector should be positioned relative to the achievement. So let's type hero achievement, and let's set the position to relative, and here let's set the position to absolute, and let's set the top value to 0.75 rem, and let's set the left value to -2 rem. So here we can see we have this yellow bullet. Now we need to bring all of this to the right side a little bit. So here for the achievement, let's add a margin left of 3.125 rem, and this is how it looks. So with that we have styled our hero section of our website. Now before starting with the about us section, let's add this design element that you see over here. So we can see that we have these 3 circles that we see over here, and it extends down here till the about section. So let's create that. Let's go back to our source code, and here we have already added these circles. We have the circles container, and in that we have these 3 circles, and we need to add the styles for these. Now what we will do is we'll just cut this circles container from here, and we will add it outside the header so that it should extend across to the about us section. So here just before the wrapper, I'll just paste the code, and I'll just add all of this inside a container division, and let's give it a class of bg elements, and let's add all of this inside this div. Right now let's go ahead and style this. So let's go to our CSS file, and let's target the bg elements division, and let's set the position to absolute, and let's set the left position to 0 and the top position to 0. Let's set the width to 100 viewport width, and let's set the height to 1400 pixels, and let's go to our website, and let's add a background, and let's see how it looks. So here we can see that this is our bg elements division. So let's go ahead and remove the background color, and now let's style these circles. First of all, let's add some common styles for all these circles. So we have this class called circle, and also these classes called circle 1 2 and 3. So let's target this circle class, and it is inside circles container. So let's type circles container circle, and let's set the position to absolute, and let's set the border to 1 pixel solid white. Let's set the border radius to 50% so that we have round shape, and let's set the z index to -2, and let's set the opacity to 0.08. These are some basic styles for the circles. Now let's add specific styles for each of the different circles. So we have this circle with the class of circle 1, and then we have circle 2 and 3. So let's style all of these circles. Let's type circles container circle 3, and let's set the height to 1000 pixels. Let's set the width to 1000 pixels as well, and let's set the right position to 60 pixels, and let's set the top position to 80 pixels. And now here we can see we have the circle displayed over here. Alright, now let's style the other circles. So let's type circles container circle 2, and let's set the height to 1300 pixels and the width to 1300 pixels. Let's set the right value to -40 pixels and top value to -80 pixels. So now we can see we have another circle being displayed over here. Let's add one more circle. So let's type circles container circle 1, and let's set the height to 1600 pixels, and let's set the width to 1600 pixels, and let's set the right value to -160 pixels and let's set the top value to negative 200 pixels. And here we have the third circle, so I'll just increase the opacity a little bit and show you. So these are the circles that we have just designed. Right now, if you go ahead and scroll to the right, we can see that it is being scrolled because this circle has a larger width than the width of the browser. So we need to restrict our browser from scrolling to the right. So for that, we have this container division with the class of bg elements. So here for the bg elements, let's type overflow of hidden. And now we are not able to scroll to the right, so now everything looks alright. So let's go back and change the opacity to 0.08. I'll just increase it a little bit. I'll just type 0.1. Alright, that's it with the circles. Now let's go ahead and create our About Us section. So let's go to the index.html file, and here after our hero section, we need to create the About Us section. But if you go to our design, here we can see that we have this background color over here, and it extends the whole width of the screen. Now the whole content of our About Us section is inside this specified width, but this background color extends the whole width of the screen. So for that, we need to go outside this wrapper. So if you take a look at our container division, here we have this division with the class of wrapper, and if you go to our CSS, for the wrapper we have set a max width. So what we need to do is we need to go outside this wrapper. So let's go outside this wrapper division, and let's create a new section with an ID of about. And in this about section, let's create the wrapper division. So now we can add the background color to the section, and now we can add the content inside the wrapper. So inside the wrapper, the first thing we need to have is this left section. So let's create a division with the class of left, and that we have an image, and let's set the source to images/about.jpg, and for the alt, let's type about image. And then after that, for this text content, let's create a division with the class of description, and in that we will have this heading. So let's create an h2, and let's type about me. And after that, we have this content. So I'll just copy all of this content from here, and let's create a paragraph. Now this first sentence over here should be a separate line. So here let's add a line break, and we'll add this inside a strong tag so that it is bold. So now if you go back to our browser, this is how the about section looks. Now the text is not being displayed because it has white color. So let's go to our style.css file, and here for the HTML, I'll just set the color of the text to white. So all the text inside our website will be white. Right after this paragraph, we need to have a button. So let's go to our HTML file, and here let's create an anchor tag, and let's give it a class of btn, and here let's type download my CV. And we also need to add the icon. So if you scroll up a little bit, here also we have this button, and we have this span over here. So we need to have a span with a class of icon. So here let's type span, and let's give it a class of icon. And here let's create an img tag, and let's type images/right arrow white, because we need to have the white color for the arrow. So we already have this image over here inside our images folder. So this is the white arrow. Now this button has a different styling. So it doesn't have this white background color. It has this outline and a transparent color. So for that, we need to add one more class over here. So I'll just type outline or outlined. Now this class will make our button a little bit different than the other button. So now let's go ahead and start styling this. So here we have this button. Let's go to our CSS file, and let's create a new comment over here. Let's type about section. First of all, let's select all the sections that we have in our website, and let's add a padding block, which is padding top and bottom of 6.25 rem. And for all the section paragraph, let's set the font size to 1.125 rem. Now the next thing we will do is we will have this image on the left side and this content on the right side. So if you go to our HTML file, here we have this about, and in that we have the wrapper, and in the wrapper we have the left and the description. So let's add a display of flex to the wrapper. I'll just type #about wrapper display of flex. Let's add a gap of 100 pixels, and let's align items to the center. So this is how it looks. Now for this image, let's add a height. So let's type hash about, and in that we have the left division, and in that we have the image. So let's set the height to 400 pixels, and let's set the border to 2 pixels solid white. And we also need to have this border radius on this top left side. So for that we need to type border radius 190 pixels for the top left and 000 for all the other corners. And here we have this about image. Right now let's add the background color for this about section. So we need to add the background color to the about ID. So let's tap about, and here let's tap background linear gradient, and let's tap 360 degrees. Let's set the color to 586 3f8 0%, RGBA 8899 248, and 0.6 for the opacity. Let's tap 33%. And for the next color let's type RGBA, and let's copy the same color from here, and for the opacity let's type 0, and here let's set it to 97%. And now let's go back to our website, and here we can see that we have this background color added to our about section. Right now let's style the other elements. So let's style this heading. So let's type H2, and let's set the font family to philosopher and sans serif, and let's set the font weight to 700. Let's set the font size to 2.5 rem, and text transform to uppercase, and let's add a margin bottom of 2.5 rem. Right now we need to add this underline. So for that we will use an after selector. So let's type H2 : after, and for the content let's type blank. Now we need to position this after selector relative to this H2. So here let's type position relative, and here let's type position absolute. Let's set the width to 125 pixels, and let's set the height to 3 pixels, and let's add a background color of var accent color. Now we need to position it to the bottom over here. So let's set the display to block, and let's set the bottom to -8 pixels. Right now we need to change the font size of this first letter of our heading, and we also need to change the color. So we need to make it look like this. So let's go back, and to select the first letter we can just type H2 : first letter, and here let's set the color to var accent color, and let's set the font size to 3.125 rem, and this is how it looks. Now for this button we need to just have the border, and we need to set the background color to transparent. So let's go to the styles of the button, and here let's add a new selector, and let's type button outlined, because we have this class of outlined over here. So let's type background color of transparent, and let's set the border to 1 pixel solid white, and let's set the color of the text to white as well. So this is how the button looks, and everything is looking alright. But here we can see that we are not able to select this text. That's because our BJ elements division, which has this circle, is on top of this section. So further let's go to the BJ elements selector, and let's set the pointer events to none. And now if you go back, now we are able to select this, and everything is working alright. So with that we have completed designing the about section of our website. So here in the services section we can see that we have these different services displayed over here, and if I click on any of these we will have the details of that service displayed down here. So this is kind of like an accordion, and on the right side we have this image, and this image will be displayed based on the service that is selected right now. So if we select a different service, then we will have a different image displayed over here. So we will do all of that in this video. Let's get started. Alright, so here I'm in my source code, and let's go to the HTML file, and here after this about us section, let's create a comment, and let's tap end of about us section, and let's create a new section, and let's give it an ID of services, and in that we will have the services displayed. Now we need to have all of this inside a specific max width. So let's add the wrapper division right here. And the first thing I need to have is this H2. So let's create an h2 and let's type services I offer. And now if you go back to our website, here we can see we have the heading and we have the correct styling displayed over here. That's because we already have styled all the h2 in our website. So if you go to the CSS file, here if you go to this part right here, we can see that we have styled all the h2 in our website. So whenever we create an h2, it will have these styles applied. Right, so now let's go ahead and create a division of the class of content. And this we will have an accordion on the left side and an image on the right side. So let's create a division with the class of accordion. And here we will have the accordion, and on the right side we will have a division, and let's give it a class of image. And in this we will have an img. And for the source, let's type images / and for the first image, let's select the image of the first service. So the first service is called brand identity design. So let's go to the images folder and let's see. So here in the images folder, we can see that we have this file called brandidentity.jpg. So let's add that over here. So by default, this image will be displayed. And now if you go back to our website, here we can see that we have the heading and we have the image. And on the left side, we need to have the accordion. So in the accordion, let's add the content of the accordion. So we will have different divisions for each of these accordion items. So this is basically an accordion item. And the same way we have another items over here. So let's go ahead and create a division with the class of accordion item. And in the accordion item, we need to have an accordion header and accordion content. So let's create a division with the class of accordion header. And let's add the heading over here. So let's type brand identity design. And let's create a paragraph and let's give it a class of accordion content. And I'll just copy this text from here. And let's paste it right here. And this way we need to add 5 more accordion items. So let's copy this accordion item from here. And I'll just paste it 5 more times. So let's go to our design, and here we can see we have all these 6 different accordion items. Now let's go ahead and change the content of all of this. So for the second accordion item, we need to have this heading of UI UX design. So I'll just copy this and paste it right here. So this is the second one. And for the paragraph, let's add some content. So just add some basic content over here. Okay, so we have added this paragraph. Now let's go to the third one, and here let's copy this print design from here. And let's paste it right here. And let's add something inside the paragraph. And here let's type professional print materials for all your business needs. Okay, the next one is web design. So let's add it over here. And let's add some paragraph. So let's start creating responsive and modern websites that stand out. All right, then we have social media design. So let's type social media design. And for the paragraph, let's type engaging social media graphics and content that captures attention. And then lastly, we have illustration. So let's add that over here. And here for the content, let's type custom illustrations and artwork for your brand. So we have added all the content of our accordion, and this is how it looks. Right now, the next thing we need to do is add the CSS and make it look like this. So let's go to our style.css file, and first of all, let's add a comment, and let's type services section. And first of all, let's make this content one next to the other. So now here, if you go to the HTML file, here we can see that we have the content division, and in that we have the accordion, and then we have the image. So we need to have these 2 elements one next to the other. So for the parent division, which is content, let's add a display of flex. So I'll just type services content display of flex, and let's add a gap of 40 pixels. So this is how it looks. Now let's go ahead and add a font size for all the content inside our website. So let's go to the body, and here just add a font size of 1.125 rem. Let's scroll down and let's continue with our styling. Now for the accordion, let's add a max width and let's set it to 600 pixels. Right now let's style the accordion header. So let's type accordion -header and let's set the font weight to bold. Let's add a margin bottom of 12 pixels and let's set the cursor to pointer. So now when we hover over this, we have this pointer. Now before the header, we need to have this bullet that we see over here. So we have this bullet with yellow color. So for that, let's use the before selector and here let's type accordion header colon before and let's set the content to blank and we'll position this relative to this accordion header. So here let's type position relative and here we'll type position absolute and let's set the width and the height to 8 pixels and let's set the border radius to 50% so that we have round shape and let's set the background color to var highlight color that we created as a CSS variable and here we can see we have the bullet. Now we need to have some spacing between this heading and this bullet. So for that we will set the left value to -16 pixels and the top value to 8 pixels and this is how it looks. Now we need to bring all of this to the right a little bit. So let's go to the accordion header and here for the accordion header let's add a margin left so that we can compensate for this. So let's type margin left of 16 pixels and this is how it looks. Right now let's go ahead and style the accordion item division. So here we have this accordion item and in that we have the accordion header and the content. So let's go ahead and type accordion item and let's set the border bottom to 1 pixel solid 333 which is dark gray and let's add a margin bottom of 8 pixels. So here we have this border bottom and let's also add padding top and bottom. So let's type padding block which is padding top and bottom and let's set it to 12 pixels. So this is how it looks. Now by default we want just one of these services to be active, so we want the accordion content of this first one to be displayed by default and all of this should be hidden. We just want to display the headings of all of these. So for that we will target the accordion content. So here we have the accordion content over here after the header and we will set the max height to 0 and I will also set the overflow to hidden so that everything outside the height will be hidden. So now we can see that just the headings are being displayed. Now what we will do is we will display the content of the service or the accordion item which is active. So we will add a class called active when we want it to be displayed. So let's type accordion item dot active and if you have the active class for the accordion item, then for the accordion content we will set the max height to a larger value. Let's try 200 pixels and by default here we will also set the opacity to 0 and here we'll set the opacity to 1 and we'll also add a little bit of animation. So let's type transform translate y of -10 pixels and here we'll just type transform translate y of 0. So it will go back to the default position when it has the active class. And we'll also have a smooth transition. So for that we will add a transition property over here and let's type all 0.4 seconds and we'll add a cubic bezier for the curve. So let's type 0.40 0.21. So you can play around with these values and get your desired effect. And let's go back to the HTML file and by default we will add the active class to the first accordion item. So let's type active over here and here we can see that the content of the first service is being displayed. Let's also add some padding to this on the left and the right. So here let's type padding. Let's set it to 0 for top and bottom and 20 pixels left and right. So this is how it looks. Right now when we click on these headings, we want to display this content. So we need to basically set the active class to this one and remove it from the other elements. So for that we'll just go ahead and we'll use some JavaScript for that. So we need to target all these accordion item elements over here. So we have this class of accordion item. So let's go to the JavaScript file and here let's type const accordion items equals document.querySelector all.accordion item. So this will target all the accordion items and add it inside this accordion items constant. And here let's type accordion items dot for each and we'll use this for each loop. And for each of the items, let's call it item. and let's create this arrow function over here. And we will add an event listener for each of these items. So let's type item.add event listener, and let's listen for the click event. And here also let's create an arrow function. And the first thing we will do is we need to remove the active class from wherever it is right now. So let's type document.querySelector, and here let's type accordion item.active. So this will select the item which has the active class, and here we'll also add a question mark to make sure that we already have this class before performing the other operations. So let's type .classList.remove, and let's remove the active class. So we are basically checking whether we have an accordion item with an active class, and we are essentially removing the active class. Right now we need to add the active class to the current item which was clicked. So we are referencing it with this name item. So let's type item.classList.add active. And now let's go back to our website and let's see whether it works. So let's click on the second heading, and we have the second one being displayed. So it is working all right. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to change the image based on the selected accordion item. And for that we need to reference the image. So if you go to the HTML file, here we have this division with the class of image, and in that we have the img tag. So we need to reference this img tag. So let's type const image element equals document.querySelector, and here is tab.image, and in that we have the img tag. And here we need to update the source of the image. And if you go to our images folder, here we have different images for each of our services. So what we will do is in the HTML file, for each of the accordion item, we'll also add a data attribute so that we know which image to be displayed. So here let's type data and let's call it image equals, and here we will add the link of the image. So for the first image, which is brand identity, we have this image called brand identity.jpg. So it is inside the images folder. So I'll just type images brand identity.jpg, and let's do the same for all the other accordion items. So let's copy this and let's paste it over here. And for this one we need to change the image name to, so here we can see we have UI UX design.jpg. So let's change this to UI UX design.jpg, and let's copy it down here for the third accordion item. And here we need to change it to print design. So here we have this image called print design. So let's type print design, and then we have another accordion item, and this one is for web design. So we have this image called web design. So let's type web design, and then we have the next one, which is social media design. So we have this image called social media design. Let's add that over here. And then we have illustration. So we have this image called illustration.jpg. Right, so we have added the data attribute for all these services, and now we can use this data image attribute and get the image that we want. So here we'll just create a const called image path, and let's set it equal to item, and in that we have this data attribute called image. So for that we need to type dataset.image. This will give us the link of the image which is inside this data attribute. And now we need to simply change the source of the image. So we can just type image element, which we are referencing over here, .src equals image path. And now if you go back and if I click on any of these, we can see that the image is changing. Now we can also add some smooth transition for this image change. So for that, let's go back to our CSS, and here let's add some properties. So I'll just type services. In that we have the image division, and in that we have the img tag, and let's type opacity of 1, and let's type transition of opacity 0.2 seconds, ease in out, and here let's type services image img, and let's add a class called fade out when we want it to fade out. So let's type fade out, and here we'll just set the opacity to 0. So now we can go ahead and go to our JavaScript file, and here we can simply go ahead and first add this class of fade out to the image. So let's type image element .classList.add fade out, and then we can go ahead and set a timeout of let's say 300 milliseconds. So before this, let's type set timeout And for the amount, let's tap 300 milliseconds, and let's add this line of code inside our set timeout. And here let's remove the fade out class after we change the image. So let's tap image element dot class list dot remove fade out. Right now, let's go ahead and check whether it works. So let's click on one of these services, and we can see that the image is fading out and the other image is being displayed. So that's basically how you can design this services section using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Right, here's the source code. So let's go to the HTML file and let's start writing the HTML for this brand section over here. So let's go outside this section, and this is the section for services. So let's create a comment and let's tap end of services section. And let's create a new section with an ID of brands. And we want all the content to be inside a specific max width. So let's add a wrapper division over here. And in that, let's add an h2. And now here in this h2, let's type top brands I have worked with. And if you go to our website, here we can see we have the heading being displayed. Now we need to add these 3 logos over here for Google, Microsoft, and Pinterest. So let's go back and let's create a division, and let's give it a class of brand logos. And let's create img tags, and in the source, let's type images / Google logo.svg, and let's add the other logos as well. So we have Microsoft logo.svg and Pinterest logo.svg. And that's basically it with the HTML of the brands section. So let's create a comment and let's type end of brands section. And here we can see we have all the content being displayed. Now let's add some CSS to make it look better. So let's go to a style.css file and let's create a new comment over here, and let's tap brands section. And first of all, let's target the section. So let's tap brands over here. So we have this ID of brands for the section, and we need to add a background color to that so it separates from the other sections. So let's add a background color of RGBA 217, 217, 217, and 0.08 for the opacity. And this is how it looks. Now for this brand section, we don't want to have the usual padding that we have for all these sections. So here we can see for all these sections we have this padding. And if you go to the CSS, here if you take a look at the section, we can see that we have added a padding block of 6.25 rem for all the sections. Now for this particular section of brands, we will add a different padding. So let's type padding of 40 pixels and 0. So now if you go to our website, for the brand section, we have a lot less padding. Right now, let's style the brand logos. So here we have this division of the class of brand logos. So let's type brand logos. And let's set the display to flex and justify content to space between. So now we can see all these logos are spread out. Now let's adjust the height of these images. So inside the brand logos, we have the images. So let's type brand logos img. And let's set the height to 50 pixels. And this is how it looks. So with that, we have styled our brand section. Right now, let's create the project section. So let's go to the HTML file and let's create a new section, and let's give it an ID of projects. And let's add a wrapper division. And first of all, let's add a heading. And for the heading, we need to have this text of portfolio. And now you can see we have this heading. Now in this section, we need to have all these images of the projects that we have created, and we also need to have these description for all these projects. So whenever we hover over these projects, we need to display these descriptions. So I'll just create a division with a class of projects container. Now we need to have different divisions for each of these projects because we also need to add the descriptions. So let's create a division of the class of project, and in the project we need to have an image. For the source, let's type images / project1.jpg. And then we need to add a project description. So let's create a division with the class of project description. And here let's add the description. So for the first one, let's type brand identity design for a top brand. And here we can see that we have a different color for the top brand. So if you go to our website, this is how it looks right now. We have the same color for all this text. So let's go ahead and add this inside a span. Now if you remember, we can see that in our hero section we have a different color for this minimal text. So if you go to the hero section HTML, here we can see that we have added a span with a class of blue text. So we can do the same thing over here. So let's create a span with a class of blue text, and let's add the ending tag right here after the top brand. Now if you go back, here we can see that we have this blue color for this text. Now we need to do the same for all the other projects. So I'll just copy this project division from here and let's paste it down here. And for the second one, let's change the image to project2.jpg. And for the project description, let's go ahead and type elegant UI concepts. So let's add elegant inside span. So let's type elegant, and let's add UI concepts over here. So this is the second text. Now if you take a look at this design, we can see that for the first line of projects, we have the first one being displayed with a larger width, and for the second line we have the second one displayed with a larger width. So we will add both of these inside separate divisions. So let's create a division with the class of line1 inside the projects container, and let's add these two projects inside this line1. And I'll just copy this line1 from here and paste it down here. And here let's change this to line2. And for the project image, let's change this to project3.jpg. Now for this description, let's type minimal logo design. So let's add logo inside the span, and let's type design over here. And then for the fourth project, let's change this to project4.jpg. And for the description, let's go ahead and type modern website redesign for an e-commerce brand. So if you go back to our website, here we can see that all the project images and descriptions are displayed over here. And in the end, we also need to add a button to display all the projects. So here we can see we have this button called view all projects. So let's go back and let's go inside the wrapper division. So just after this projects container division, let's create an anchor tag, and let's give it a class of btn, and here let's type view all projects. And let's also add the arrow. So if you scroll up, here we can see we have this span with the class of icon. So let's copy this span. This is the icon that we have inside the button. So let's paste it over here for this button, and this is how it looks. Right now, let's go ahead and add some CSS to make it look like this. So let's go to our CSS file and let's create a new comment, and I'll just type project section. And first of all, let's go ahead and add a margin top for this projects container so that we have some gap between the heading and this projects container. So let's type projects container margin top of let's try 60 pixels. Now let's go ahead and style the line 1 and line 2, and we need to display the projects one next to the other. So let's go ahead and type projects line 1 and projects line 2, and let's set the display to flex and gap of 24 pixels, and let's add a margin bottom of 24 pixels. So this is how it looks. Now for all the projects, we will have a fixed height. So let's type projects, and in that we have this division with the class of project. And for the project, let's set a height of 22 rems. Right now, let's go ahead and target the image inside the project division, and let's set the height and the width of all the images to 100%. So let's type projects img, and let's set the width to 100% and height to 100%. And let's type object fit to cover so that it has the correct proportions. Now in the line 1, we need to have the width of the first project to be a little bit more. So we can use a property called flex. So let's go ahead and type projects line 1 project, and let's target the first child. So this basically selects the first element inside line 1, which is this project right here. And let's go ahead and set the flex to 3. And for the last item inside the line 1, so let's type hash projects line 1 project colon last child, and here we'll just set the flex to 2. So this will have a width of 2 units and this will have a width of 3 units. So now if we go back, here we can see we have the correct width for these projects. Now we need to do the opposite for these two projects. So for that, let's go back, and here we'll just add one more thing. So we'll just type hash projects line 2 project last child. And in the same way, let's go ahead and type projects, line 2, project, first child. So now we can see that everything looks alright. Now the next thing we will do is we'll position these images relative to the project, and we'll set the position to absolute for these images. And then we can go ahead and set a display of grid and place items to the center so that this text is in the center. So for that, let's go over here to the images, and we can just remove the height and width, and we can simply type position absolute and inset of 0, which sets the top, left, right and bottom positions to 0. And for the project, let's set the position to relative. And for the project, let's also set the display to grid and place items to the center so that the text is displayed in the center. And right now we cannot see the text right here. So if you right click over here and go to inspect, and if you take a look at the project description, here we can see that it is exactly in the center. So what we will do is when we hover over this, we'll just set the opacity of the image to a lower value. So let's do that. And we'll also add a smooth transition over here. So let's type transition of all 500 milliseconds ease. And let's add a hover effect to the project. So let's type hash projects, project : hover, and then let's target the image. So when you hover over this project, we need to add these tiles to the image. So just simply increase the scale. So let's type transform scale of 1.1, and we'll also set the opacity to 0.2. So now if you go back here, we can see that the hover effect is working. Now the image is being displayed on top of the other projects. So for that, let's go ahead and add an overflow of hidden to the project. So here let's tap overflow hidden. And now we can see this is how it looks. Right now, let's go ahead and style these project descriptions. So let's tap projects, project description, because that's the class that we have for these project descriptions. And let's go ahead and add some styles over here. First of all, let's set the font size to 2rem. And let's set the font family to philosopher and serif. And we'll also add a max width. Let's set it to 400 pixels. So this is how the project section looks right now. Now here we can see that the icon is not being displayed correctly. So that's because here we are targeting all the images inside the projects section. So let's specifically target images inside the projects container. So let's type projects container. And now it looks all right. So with that, we have completed styling the brands and the portfolio section. Right, here's my source code, and let's go to the HTML file and let's scroll down. Let's go to the end of the section, and this is the project section. So let's create a comment and let's type end of projects section. And now let's create a new section called process. And this is the process section. Now for this also we will add a wrapper division so that everything is inside a specific max width. And let's add an h2 and let's type my design process. And if you go to our website, here we can see we have our heading. Right, now the next thing we need to do is we need to create these two sections over here. So we have this left section where we have this paragraph and this button, and on the right side we have this UI for the process. So let's go back and let's go to our HTML file. Let's create a new division with a class of content. In this we'll have a left division, and in that we will have a paragraph. And let's copy this paragraph from here and let's paste it over here. Now after the paragraph we need to have a button. So let's create an anchor tag and let's give it a class of btn. And since this is a dark button, let's also give it a class of dark, and we will style it differently. And here for the button we need to add this text of start your project. So let's type start your project. And let's add the icon for the button. So I'll just copy this span from here, from the other button, and let's paste it over here. Now we need to have the white icon. So let's change this to right arrow white.svg. After this we need to have another section where we have this timeline. So let's go outside this left division and let's create a division with the class of timeline. Now in this timeline we need to have different timeline items. So let's create a division with the class of timeline item. Now in this we need to have a dot on the left side, and the the content on the right side. So let's create a division with the class of timeline dot, and we'll style it using CSS. And let's create a division with the class of timeline content, and let's add this content. So we have discovery and research, and let's copy this timeline item, and we need to paste it 4 more times. So let's paste it down here. And for the second one, we need to type concept development. So let's add that over here. And then we need to have design and refinement. And then we need to have finalization and delivery. And then lastly, we have post-launch support. So now if you go back to our website, here we can see all the content are being displayed over here. Right now, let's go to the end, and let's create a comment. Let's type end of the process section. And let's add the CSS for this. So let's go to the style.css file, and let's create a new comment, and let's type process section. And the first thing we will do is we will add this background image over here for this process section, and we'll also make it a parallax effect. So for that, let's go back over here, and let's target the main section, which is this section with an ID of process. So let's type hash process. And first of all, let's set the background color to RGBA, 255, 255, 255, and 0.9 for the opacity. And let's set the color of all the text to black. Right now for the image, we will use a before selector. So let's type hash process, colon before. And for the content, we'll just leave it blank. And we will add some CSS to add the image here in the background. So first of all, we need to set the position of this process section to relative, so that we can add a position of absolute over here. And let's set the inset to 0, so that the left, right, top, and bottom positions are set to 0. And now here we need to add the background image. So let's type background image, and let's set it to URL. And here let's type images / and we have an image called sectionbg.jpg. And let's add some more properties for the image. So let's type background size cover and background position, and let's set it to center. And here we can see we have the image. And let's also set the background repeat to no repeat, so that it doesn't repeat. And let's also set a background attachment to fixed, so that if you scroll up and down, the image stays there. So in this way, we have this kind of parallax effect. Now we'll also set a z index of -1. So let's type z index -1. And now we can see that we can slightly see the image behind our section. So this is exactly what we want. Right now, the next thing we will do is we will make these left and timeline divisions one next to the other. So if you go back, here we can see we have this division with the class of content, and in that we have the left and the timeline divisions. So let's target this content division inside the process. So let's type hash process content, and let's set the display to flex, and let's add a gap of 40 pixels. And let's type justify content space between, so that the items are all the way to the left and the right. So this is how it looks right now. Now for the left section, we will have a max width. So let's type process left, and let's add a max width of 700 pixels. Right now, let's style this button. So for the button, we have added this class of dark. So let's go back to the style.css file, and let's go to the styles of the button. And here we already have the styles for the button outlined. Let's add one more style, and let's type button.dark. And let's add a background color of var dark color. And let's set the color of the text to white. And this is how the button looks. So we have the left section designed perfectly. Now let's style the right section, which is the timeline. So let's go back to our CSS, and here let's target the timeline. So let's type dot timeline. And let's add a padding of 8 pixels and 30 pixels. And let's set a min width of 300 pixels, so it will have at least 300 pixels of width. And let's add a margin top of negative 80 pixels. So now we can see that this timeline is displayed along with this heading on the left side. Right now, let's add a vertical line over here for this line that you see over here. So for that, let's go back and we will use a before selector for that. And before that, let's go ahead and set the position of this timeline to relative. And here let's type timeline colon before. And let's set the content to blank. And let's set the position to absolute. And let's set the left position to, let's try 7 pixels. And top position to 0. And let's set the height to 100% of this timeline. And let's also set the width to 1 pixel. And let's add a background color of #0e C20e. And now we can see we have this line on the left side. Now let's go ahead and style each of these individual timeline items. So for that, let's go back to our CSS. And for the timeline items, we have this division with the class of timeline item. So let's target those divisions. So let's type timeline item. And for the timeline item, we will set a margin bottom position of 35 pixels. And this is how it looks. Now let's also add these dots that we see over here. So we will add those dots relative to these timeline items. So here for the timeline item, let's also add a position of relative. And for the dots, we have this division with the class of timeline dot. So let's target that. I'll just type dot timeline dot. And here let's set the position to absolute. Let's set the left value to negative 30 pixels. And let's set the width to 15 pixels. And let's set the height to 15 pixels. And let's set the border radius to 50% so that it has a round shape. And we also need to add a background color. So let's tap background color. And let's set the value to 0EC20E. And here we can see we have these dots displayed over here. Now we need to display these dots at the center vertically. So for that, let's set the top position to 50%. And now it starts from the center. So we also need to add transform translate y of negative 50%. And now it is exactly in the center along with the timeline items. Right now, let's add some styles to the timeline content. So here we can see inside the timeline item, we have this timeline content. So let's type timeline content. And let's set the color to 333, which is dark gray. And let's set the line height to 1.5. And let's also add a padding of 5 pixels top and bottom, 0 for left and right. And here we can see at the end we have a lot of height for the line. So we will target the last timeline item and we'll just remove the margin bottom that we added over here. So here we can see we have added this margin bottom. So let's type timeline item colon last child and let's set the margin bottom to 0. And that looks alright. So with that, we have styled our timeline section as well. And we can also see that we have this line extending above these dots as well. So if you want to keep it like this, you can just keep this code as it is. But if you want to have the line start from here, you can just add the specific height that you need. So let's go to inspect and let's go to the before selector of the timeline. And here we can see that we have set the height to 100%. So we can add a calc over here and we can type 100% minus a specific value. So let's try 40 pixels. Now we can say that we have less height. Let's increase it a little bit. So let's try 50 pixels. And now we can just go ahead and change the top value. Let's set it to 24 pixels and I think that looks alright. So in this way we can control the height of this line. So we need to change the top to 24 pixels and the height to this value. So I'll just copy these two values from here. And let's go to our source code and here for the before selector, I'll just replace these two lines over here. And now we can see we have the correct line as we have in our design. So with that, we have styled our timeline section for our website. Alright, here's my source code, and let's go to the index.html file, and let's go to the end. And this is the end of the process section. So let's create a new section over here, and let's give it an ID of testimonials. Now we want these testimonials to be inside a specific width as well. So let's add a wrapper division over here. Now here we don't have any headings. We need to create a slider for this. So let's create a division with the class of slider, and we will add multiple testimonials over here. And the next thing we will do is we will create a container division for the testimonials. So let's create a division with the class of testimonials container. Now in this we will have several testimonial content divisions. So let's type testimonials content, and in this we will have the content of the testimonial. So on the left side we need to have this image. So let's create a division with the class of testimonial image, and in that we will have an img tag, and for the source let's type images / and we have this image called testimonial1.jpg, and for the alt let's type client testimonial. And after the image we need to have this text of the testimonial and also this name. So let's create a division with the class of text and name. And here the first thing we need to have is this quotation mark. So let's add a division with the class of quote mark, and I have an image called quote icon.svg. So let's add that over here. And then after that we need to have the testimonial text. So let's create a division with the class of testimonial text, and in that we will have the text of the testimonial. So I'll just copy this text from here and let's paste it over here. And after that let's go ahead and create a division with the class of testimonial author, and in this one let's add the name of the person. So let's type Sarah T, and then let's add a paragraph. So let's go ahead and add this inside an S3, and after the H3 let's add a paragraph, and let's add this text over here. So that's basically it with the testimonials content. Now let's go ahead and copy this testimonial content from here, and let's go ahead and paste it 2 more times. Right now let's add some more testimonials. So this is the first one. For the second one let's change the image to testimonial2.jpg, and here for the testimonial text let's add a different text over here. So I'll just add some text. So this is a text, and let's add the name. So let's type John M, and for the designation let's type CEO of Next Gen Innovations. Right now let's add one more testimonial. So here let's change the image to testimonial3.jpg, and here for the text let's go ahead and type the text over here. So I'll just add something. Alright, now for the name let's add Michael D, and here let's go ahead and type entrepreneur. Alright, that's it with all the testimonials. Now the next thing we need to do is add these 2 arrows over here. So for that let's go outside the slider division. So this is the end of the slider division. So here let's create a division with the class of navigation arrows, and let's add a button with the class of nav arrow, and also a class called priv. Now in this button let's add an SVG. Now let's get the SVG from heroicons.com. Right here I'm in heroicons.com, and let's search for left, and let's copy this icon from here, chevron left. So let's copy the SVG, and let's paste it inside here. Right now let's go ahead and create one more button, and let's give it a class of nav arrow and next. And here let's copy the SVG of the next button. Let's search for right, and this is the chevron right. So let's copy the SVG and let's paste it over here. Alright, so with that we have completed the HTML of our testimonial section. So let's add a comment, end of testimonial section. Right now let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So if we scroll down, here we can see we have these testimonials displayed over here. Now let's go ahead and style this using CSS. So let's go to our style.css file and let's create a new comment, and let's tap testimonial section. And the first thing we need to do is we need to add a different background color over here. So here we have this accent color as the background. So let's go ahead and type hash testimonials, which is the ID of the section, and let's add a background color of var accent color. And here we can see we have this accent color. Now for this testimonials section, we don't want to have a lot of padding, so let's add a padding top of 1 rem. Right now we need to have all these testimonial content one next to the other. So if we go to the HTML file, here we can see that we have this division with the class of testimonials container, and in that we have the testimonial content division. So we have these 3 testimonial content divisions. Now we want to have all of these one next to the other. So for that we need to target the parent division, which is testimonials container. So let's type testimonials container, and we need to set the display to flex. And here let's add a padding top of let's try 72 pixels, and let's also add a width, and let's set the width to 300% because we have 3 testimonials. And now we can see that we have all these 3 testimonials displayed over here. Now we want to display just one of these testimonials at a time, so let's go ahead and target the slider, which is the container division of the testimonials container. So let's type slider, or let's type hash testimonials slider, and let's set the overflow to hidden so that anything outside it will not be displayed. So now we can see that we are not able to scroll to the right. Right now let's target this image. So the image is inside testimonial image. So let's type testimonial image img, and let's set the width to 160 pixels, and let's set the height to 160 pixels as well. Let's set the border radius to 50% so that we have round shape, and let's add a border of 2 pixels solid white, and let's add a box shadow, and let's set it to 0, 4 pixels, 20 pixels, 5 pixels, RGBA 000 and 0.25, and this is how the image looks. Right now let's target the testimonial content, and we need to display all of them one next to the other. So here we can see we have this division with the class of testimonial content, and in that we have the testimonial image and the text and name division. So let's type testimonial content, and let's set the display to flex and align items to the center. And let's add a gap of 100 pixels, and let's add a padding of 1 rem. Right now let's style the testimonial author. So here we can see we have this division with the class of testimonial author. So let's add a margin top to that. Just type testimonial author, and let's add a margin top of 1.5 rem. And inside the testimonial author we have this paragraph. So let's change the font size of the paragraph. Let's type testimonial author P, and let's set the font size to 1 rem, and let's set the font style to italic. Now we want this quote mark image to be positioned relative to this text and name, so that it is on top of this text, and it should be behind the text, but it is on the top side of the text. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's change the position of text and name. So this is the text and name division, and let's change the position to relative. So let's type text and name, and let's type position relative. Now we can target the quote mark division. So let's type quote mark, and let's set the position to absolute, and let's set the top position to negative 80 pixels, and let's set the left position to negative 80 pixels, and let's set the opacity to 0.2, and this is how it looks. Now let's add a higher line height for this text. So here we can see that we have added a div for the testimonial text, and if you go to the style.css file and if we scroll up here for all the paragraph, we have already added a line height. So let's change this div into a p tag, and let's do the same for the other testimonials as well. So here let's change this to a p tag. Let's do the same for the third one. And now if you go back, here we can see that we have the correct line height. Right now let's go ahead and style this navigation arrows. So here we can see we have the navigation arrows inside the wrapper division of the testimonials. Now we need to set the position of these navigation arrows to absolute, and for that we will set the position of the wrapper to relative. So let's go ahead and type hash testimonials wrapper, and let's set the position to relative. And here let's go ahead and target the navigation arrows, and let's set the position to absolute, and let's set the right value to 4 rem and margin top of 2 rem, and let's set the display to flex, and let's go ahead and target the next and the previous buttons. So here we can see we have this button with the class of priv and another button with the class of next. So let's target those. I'll just type navigation arrows priv and navigation arrows next, and let's set the width to 40 pixels, and let's set the background color to transparent, and let's set the color of the text to white and display of flex, and let's add a padding of 4 pixels. Let's set the cursor to pointer, and let's set the border to none. Right now let's target the navigation arrows, and here let's add a border of 1 pixel solid RGBA 255, 255, 255 and 0.4. So now this is how the next and the previous buttons look. Now when we hover over these next and previous buttons, we will have a dark background. So let's go ahead and type navigation arrows next colon hover, navigation arrows priv colon hover, and let's set the background color to var dark color, and here let's add a transition so that we have smooth transition. So let's type transition of all 300 milliseconds is, and this is how it looks. And now for the testimonial content division, let's also add a width of 100%. So right now if you take a look at the width, here we can see that it has a larger width than needed. So we need to set the width to 100%. So let's go back over here, and let's go to the testimonial content, and here let's set the width to 100%, and now everything looks alright. Alright, so with that we have designed our testimonial section. Now the next thing we need to do is make this next and previous buttons work. So let's use some JavaScript for that. Let's go back over here, and let's go to the main.js file, and here let's add some references. So the first thing we need to do is target the container of the testimonial, which is testimonials container. We need to move it left and right for the next and the previous buttons to work. And the next things we need to target are the next and the previous buttons. So here we have the next and priv buttons. And the last thing we need to target are the testimonials content division. So we need to check how many testimonial content are there. So we'll use it for that. Let's go ahead and type const testimonial container equals document.querySelector. And let's type testimonial container, and let's type const next btn equals document.querySelector, and here let's type nav arrow next, and const priv btn equals document.querySelector, and let's type dot nav arrow priv, and lastly we need to target all the testimonials. So const testimonials equals document.querySelector all, because we need to select multiple items, and let's type testimonial content. Right, first of all, let's create a variable for the current index, and let's also create a const for the total testimonials. So let's type total testimonials equals testimonials dot length. So this will give us the total number of testimonials using this constant right here. Right now here let's create a function called update slider, and in this function we will basically move the testimonials container left and right. So here let's type testimonial container dot style dot transform equals, and let's use backticks, and here let's type translate x, and here we will use this formula minus dollar symbol curly braces, and inside here we'll just type current index, which starts from 0 at the beginning, times 100 divided by total testimonials, and here we'll add a %sign. So this will help us move the testimonials container 100% to the left and the right sides. And now let's target the next and the previous buttons. So let's type next btn dot add event listener, and here let's listen for the click event, and here let's type current index equals current index plus 1, and here we'll add a modulo operator, and let's type total testimonials. So what this will do is, if the current index is larger than the total testimonials, then it will go back to the beginning. So if you go to the last slide and if you click on the next button, it should go to the first slide. So that's why we use this modulo operator over here. And now we can simply go ahead and type update slider. And in the same way, let's go ahead and create one for the prev button. So let's type prev btn dot add event listener. And for the click event, let's go ahead and type current index equals current index -1. And here we need to add plus total testimonials modulo total testimonials. So this will give us the correct value from 0 to 2 because we have 3 testimonials, 0, 1 and 2. And here let's call the update slider function. And let's go back to our website and let's see whether it works. So let's click on the next button and it is not working. So let's go to the inspector and let's see whether we have any errors. Let's go to the console and here we can see we have this error at line 30. So it says cannot read properties of null. So I think here this is null. So we are referencing it over here, document.querySelector. Let's see whether the class name is correct. Let's go back to index.html. And here we can see it is testimonials container. We need to add an S. So let's tap S. And we will add the S over here as well. And here. Right now let's go back and let's see whether it works. Let's click on the next button. And we have the next testimonial displayed. And everything is working all right. Let's also add smooth transition. So let's go back over here to the style.css file. And for the testimonials container, we need to add a transition. So let's type transition of transform and 500 milliseconds and ease in out. So now let's click on the next button and we have the next testimonial being displayed. And after the last one, we have the first one being displayed. And the previous button is also working all right. So with that, we have completed designing our testimonial section for our website. Right here, I'm in my source code and let's go to the HTML file and let's go to the end. And here, let's create a new section and let's give it an ID of contact. And we want the content of the contact division to be inside a max width. So let's add the wrapper division over here. And in that, we need to add this contact me heading. So let's create an h2 and let's type contact me. And if you go back to our website, here we can see we have the heading being displayed. And after that, we need to have a form. So let's create a form. And I'll just remove the action for now. Now in this form, we need to have the input fields. So here we can see that we have these 2 input fields in one line. And then we have another text area over here. So we'll create a group. So let's go ahead and create a division with the class of group. And in that, we'll create an input field. And let's set the type to text. And let's add a placeholder of full name. And let's duplicate this. And here, let's add the type to email. And here, let's type email. And let's create a text area over here. And for the text area, let's add a placeholder of your message. And let's set the row to 6. So we'll have 6 lines. And after that, we need to have a button. So let's create a button over here. And for this button, let's add a class of btn. And here, let's type send message. And let's add the icon of the button. So let's search for the icon over here. So it's, I think it's in the hero section. So here we have the span. So let's copy this. And let's add it over here after the text. And if we go back to our website, here we can see we have all the content displayed. We have the input fields, text area, and this button. All right, now let's go ahead and style this. So let's go to our CSS. And before that, let's add a comment over here and let's tap end of contact section. And let's go to CSS file and let's create a comment. I'll just type contact section. And first of all, let's target the form. So let's tap hash contact form. And let's set the display to flex. And let's set the flex direction to column. And let's add a gap of 24 pixels between the elements. Now let's target the group. So let's tap hash contact group. And let's set the display to flex. And let's add a gap of 24 pixels over here as well. And we need to set the width of all these input fields to 100% so that it fills the whole width. So let's target the input field. So let's type hash contact input and hash contact. Let's also target the text area. And let's set a padding of 12 pixels top and bottom, 24 pixels left and right. And let's set the font size to, let's try 1.125 rem. And let's set the width to 100%. And let's set the font family to Inter sans serif. And let's set the background to transparent. And let's set the color of the text to white. And let's also add a border of 1 pixel solid 404040. Now when we click on these input fields, we can see that we have this outline. If you don't want the outline, you can add the following code. So you can just type hash contact input colon focus and hash contact text area colon focus. So when we focus on these elements, we need to set the outline to none. So now we can see that we don't have the outline, and the text area doesn't have the correct height. So let's go back to the index.html file, and here we need to set it to rows, not row. And now we can see we have the correct height for the text area. But now when we hover over this button, we need to have the cursor set to pointer. So we will do that in the styling of the button. So let's go to the btn selector, and here let's set a cursor to pointer. And let's set the width to fit content. And now for the button of the contact form, we need to remove the margin top from here. So for that, let's scroll down and let's target the button inside the contact form. So here let's type hash contact btn and let's type margin top of 0, and this is how it looks. So with that, we have styled our contact form, and here we can see we have this resize button, and if you want to disable the resize of the text area, you can do that as well. Let's go back. And let's target the text area. So I'll just type hash contact text area and let's type resize none. And now we can see that we don't have the option of resizing this text area. Alright, so that's it with the contact section. Now let's create the footer. So let's go to the HTML file, and here let's create a footer tag, and in that let's add a wrapper division. And here we need to have this left area where we have the logo, this text, and these social media icons. And then on the right side, we need to have these links. So let's create a division with the class of left. And in this, let's create an anchor tag for the logo. And let's type designer. And we can just copy the logo from the hero section. So here we have the logo. So I'll just copy this and I'll just paste it down here. And here we can see we have the logo being displayed. And then we need to have a paragraph, and let's type designing ideas that make an impact. And then we need to have the socials. So we have added the socials at the top over here as well. So let's copy the same thing. Let's scroll up and let's copy the socials division from here, and let's paste it down here. Right, now let's go outside the left division and let's create a division with the class of right. And here we need to add the links. So let's create an anchor tag, and here let's type about. And we also need to have contact, services, and privacy policy. So let's type contact, and let's type services, and we need to type privacy policy. Right, now after the footer, we need to have this text for the copyright content. So let's go outside the footer and let's create a division with the class of copyright. And here let's create a division with the class of wrapper, and let's add a paragraph tag. And here let's go ahead and type ampersand copy semicolon. This will add the copyright symbol, and let's type 2025 Alex, all rights reserved, designed with passion. So if you go back to our browser, here we can see that all the content are being displayed. Now let's add the styles. So let's go back to the style.css file, and let's create a comment, and let's type footer. And here first of all, let's target the footer, and we need to change the padding of the footer. So let's type padding, and let's set it to 54 pixels top and bottom, 0 for left and right. And let's set the padding top to 0. So this is how the footer looks. And inside the footer, we have the wrapper division, and we need to set a display of flex for the wrapper because we need to have the left division on the left side and the right division on the right side. So let's target the footer wrapper and let's set the display to flex, and let's tap justify content space between align items to the center. And now we can see that this content is one next to the other. Right now, let's target this left division and let's tap footer left, display of flex, flex direction to column, and let's add a gap of 12 pixels. And here we can see the size of these icons is not correct. We have smaller size over here. So let's go to the CSS for the socials. So here we can see that we have added the styles over here, and we are targeting the socials inside the hero. So let's remove this hero from here and we'll target all the socials. And now if you scroll down, here we can see we have the correct styling. Right now for the right division, let's add some styles. So here let's tap footer right, and let's set the display to flex. Let's add a gap of 80 pixels. Let's set the font size to 1 rem, and let's set the text transform to uppercase. And this is how it looks. Right now let's go ahead and style this copyright division. So let's tap copyright over here, and let's set the font size to 1 rem, and let's add a background color of 0D0F12, and let's set the padding to, let's try 10 pixels, and this is how it looks. I think we can change the background color a little bit. So let's go back, let's make it a little bit light, and let's go back. And I think that looks all right. So with that, we have styled our contact section and the footer. Right here, I'm in my source code, and we will add 2 breakpoints to our design. One is for the tablet and the other for the smartphone. So let's go ahead and start doing that. First of all, I'll just create a comment and let's tap responsive. And here, let's go ahead and create a media query. So I'll just tap at media, and let's tap max width of 1100 pixels. So whenever the width of the screen is less than 1100 pixels, all these CSS styles that we add over here inside this block will be applied to our design. So let's decrease the width of the browser window a little bit. And just for testing, let's go ahead and select everything and let's set the color to red. And now if you go back, here we can see that we have the red color. And if I increase the width of the browser window, we have the default color. So this is the width 1100 pixels. So let's keep our browser at this, and let's start adding our styles. Now the first thing we will do is we will set the size of all this text to a lower value. So if you go back to our CSS and if you go to the beginning, here we can see that for the body we had set a font size of 1.125 rem. So here in this tablet version, let's go ahead and delete this. Let's type body, and let's set the font size to 1 rem. And now we can see that we have this text with the size of 1 rem, and here for these paragraphs inside the section we have added some styles as well. So let's right click over here and go to inspect, and here we can see for all the paragraph inside the section we have set a font size of 1.125 rem. So let's remove that as well and let's set it to 1 rem. So here I'll just add a comma and let's tap section. So for all the section we have paragraphs, and now we can see we have the correct size for all this text. Right now let's go ahead and set the size of this logo. So let's go ahead and type .logo because we have this class of logo for the logo, and let's tap font size and let's set it to 1.125 rem, and this is how the logo looks. Now for the hero section, let's go ahead and set the size of this heading. So this is an h1. If we go to the index.html file, here we can see that inside our header with the class of hero we have this h1. So let's set the size of this h1. Let's go ahead and type hero h1, and let's set the font size to 7 rem. Now we need to add some more styles to this hero section to make it completely responsive, but we will do that later. First of all, let's target the other sections in our website, and we will completely make this hero section responsive later because we need to add some adjustments to the size and the position of the image as well. So first of all, let's focus on the easier parts. So here we have this about section, And in the about section of the tablet version, we will reduce the gap that we have over here. So let's go back and let's create a selector. Let's type hash about, and in the about we have a wrapper. So if you go over here and if you take a look at the section for the about, here we can see that we have this about section, and that we have the wrapper. And the wrapper we have the left and the description. So we had set a display of flex for the about wrapper, and let's search for it. I'll just type hash about wrapper, and here we can see that we have set a display of flex and we have set a gap of 100 pixels. Now let's reduce the gap and let's set it to gap of 60 pixels. So this is how it looks, and we have some problems on the right side because of this achievement section, but we will fix that when we fix this hero section. So let's scroll down, and then we have this services section, and I think that looks alright in the tablet version. So let's scroll down, and here we have this brand section. So let's add some styles to this brand section. What we'll do is we will reduce the height of these images. So let's take a look at the styles of the brand section in our CSS. So here we can see for the brand logos image, we have set a height of 50 pixels. So let's copy this and let's scroll down, and let's paste it right here, and let's set the height to 40 pixels, and I think that looks alright. And then we have this contact section right here, and everything else looks alright in our tablet version. So let's go to the contact section, and let's reduce the font size of these input fields and the text area. So let's type hash contact input and hash contact text area, and let's search for it. Let's see what is the size that we have set. Contact input, and here we can see we have set a font size of 1.125 rem. So let's go ahead and set a font size of 1 rem, and I think that looks alright. So with that we have styled our tablet version, and now only the hero section is remaining to be styled completely. Right now let's move on to the smartphone version. So let's reduce the width even more. So this is the smartphone version. Now for the smartphone version, let's add a breakpoint. So let's tap at media, max width, and let's set the max width to 800 pixels. So whenever the screen width is less than 800 pixels, these styles will be added to our design. So the first thing we need to do is we need to hide these menu items. So if you go to our index.html file, here we can see we have this division with the class of menu items. So let's hide this. It is inside this nav. So let's go ahead and tap nav, menu items, and let's set the display to none. And now we have set the display to none, and on the right side we need to add an icon. So let's search for the icon, and let's get it from heroicons.com. Alright, so here I'm in heroicons.com, and let's search for menu, and here we have this icon. So let's copy the SVG. Let's go to the index.html file, and here let's create a division with the class of menu icon, and let's paste the SVG over here. And let's go to style.css file, and first of all let's add some styles over here. Here I'll just create a comment called hidden items. So we'll hide all these items in the desktop version. So let's tap menu icon. Let's set the width to 36 pixels, and let's add a padding of 4 pixels, and let's set the cursor to pointer, and this is how the menu looks. So let's hide this in the desktop version. So if we increase the width of the browser window, here we can see that we have this menu icon. So let's hide it over here. So let's set the display to none, and here in the smartphone version, let's type menu icon, and let's set the display to block. So here we don't have the menu icon displayed, and if you go to the smaller version, here we have the menu icon displayed. And the next thing we will do is we'll just reduce the font size of these headings. So let's tap hero h1, and let's set the font size to 5 rem, and we'll style all the other elements later. But first of all, let's focus on the about section. So here let's go ahead and type about section, and here let's type hash about wrapper. And what we will do is we will display these elements one below the other. So we will have the image displayed on the top and this text at the bottom. So let's set the flex direction to column, and let's add a gap of 30 pixels. So this is how it looks. We have this about image, and this achievement section is displayed on top of the about section. So let's add a position of relative to that. So right now the position is set to absolute. So if we inspect it, here we can see that the position is set to absolute. So let's go ahead and type hero achievements position relative, and let's search for this. Let's see what else have we added. So we have set a top position of 17.5 rems. So let's remove that as well. Here let's go ahead and type top, and let's set it to 3 rem. Right now let's continue with the about section. So here we can see that the image is on top and the text at the bottom. Now for all the headings inside the sections, let's reduce the font size a little bit. So let's type H2. Let's set the font size to 1.7 rem, and for the first letter let's go ahead and type H2 : first letter, and let's set the font size to 2.125 rem. So this is how the heading looks for smartphone. And now for the image, we will set the width to 100%, and we'll just reduce the height a little bit. So let's inspect it, and here we can see for the image we have set a height of 400 pixels. So let's reduce it to, let's try 300 pixels. So just tap hash about, and if you go to the HTML, here we can see inside the about section we have the left division, and in the left division we have the image. So let's tap about left img, and let's set the height to 300 pixels, and let's set the width to 100%. And right now the width is not set to 100% of the screen. That's because the width of the left division is not 100%. So let's target that. I'll just type hash about left, and let's set the width to 100%. And now the image is stretched. So for that let's type object fit to cover, and now everything looks alright. So we have the about section being styled correctly. Let's also increase the padding of all the buttons for all the screens. So I think the padding left and right should be increased a little bit. So let's go to the button, and here we can see that we have set the padding to 0.75 rem. So let's set it to 0.75 rem for top and bottom, and for left and right let's type 1.5 rem. And I think now the button looks good. So let's scroll down, and the about section is styled correctly. Let's scroll down, and we have the services section. Now for the services section, we want these elements to be displayed one below the other. So here we can see we have the content inside the services section, and in that we have the accordion, and after that we have the image. So we want to have both of these one next to the other. Now we have already set the display of this content to flex. So let's target that. I'll just create a comment, services section, and let's type hash services content, and let's set the flex direction to column. So this is how it looks, and I think we don't need to make any more changes in this. It is working alright. So let's scroll down and go to the next section, which is the brand section. So let's create a comment. Let's tap brand section, and we will display all these logos one below the other. So here in the brand section we have this division with the class of brand logos. In that we have these img tags. So let's go ahead and type brand logos, and here let's set the flex direction to column, and let's add a gap of 30 pixels, and this is how it looks. Right, next we have this project section where we have these different projects displayed over here. So let's go ahead and add some styles to that. Let's add a comment. Let's type projects section, and if you go to the project section, here we can see that we have a division with the class of line 1, and in that we have the first 2 projects. And then we have a division with the class of line 2, and in that we have the next 2 projects. So let's go ahead and target line 1 and line 2. So let's type hash projects line 1 and hash projects line 2, and we'll set the display of all of this to grid. And now we can see that all these projects are displayed one below the other, and we'll also reduce the font size of these project descriptions. So we have this division with the class of project description. So let's target that. I'll just type hash projects project description, and let's set the font size to 1.75 rem. So now everything looks alright. Let's go to the next section, which is the process section. So let's create a comment. I'll just type process section, and let's type hash process, and in that we have the content. So here we can see inside the process section we have the content, and in the content we have the left and the timeline. So let's type content, and we want it to be displayed one below the other, so let's set the flex direction to column. And now we have the text at the top and the timeline at the bottom. Now we'll just go ahead and display the timeline at the top. So for that we can just use column reverse, and now we can see that the timeline is at the top. Now I think we have added some negative margin top to this timeline, so let's inspect that. And if we have it, we'll just remove it. So here we have the timeline, and we have set a margin top of negative 80 pixels. So let's remove the negative margin top. I'll just type timeline, and let's type margin top of 0. And now we can see this is how it looks. So everything is being displayed correctly. And then we have the testimonials section. So let's create a comment. Let's type testimonials section. And here first of all, let's target the container. So if you go to our HTML file, here in the testimonials section we have this division of the class of testimonials container, and that we have the testimonial content. And the testimonial content we have all these elements. So we have testimonial image, text and name. So we want these to be displayed one below the other. So let's target this testimonial content. I'll just type testimonial content, and let's set the flex direction to column. And I think we have some padding added to the testimonial container. We'll just remove that at the top. So let's right click and go to inspect. And here for the testimonials container, we can see that we have added padding top of 72 pixels, and we'll just remove it. So let's copy this selector, and let's go ahead and paste it over here, and let's type padding top of 0. Now here for the quote mark, let's set the left to 0, and let's add a top value. So right now we have these values, top of negative 80 pixels and left of negative 80 pixels. Let's target that. I'll just type quote mark, and let's set the top to negative 90 pixels, and let's set the left to 0. So this is how it looks. Now inside the testimonial content we have these 3 elements. Now let's decrease the gap a little bit. So here for the content, let's type gap of 40 pixels. Right now this quote mark is displayed a little bit on top of the image. So let's set the z index of the image. So here we have this division of the class of testimonial image. Let's target that. Let's type testimonial image, and let's set the z index to 2. And now the image is displayed on top of the quote mark. And here we also have this 2 navigation arrows. Let's go to the inspector, and for the navigation arrows we have some margin top. So let's remove that as well. We'll just set it to 0. So let's go back and let's copy this selector, and let's paste it over here. And here let's type margin top of 0, and this is how it looks. Right now the next section is the contact section. So let's create a comment. Let's type contact section. Now we need to have the full name and the email one below the other. So it is inside a division with the class of group. So here we can see we have this group, and in that we have these 2 input fields. So let's set the flex direction to column for this group. So I just type contact group flex direction to column, and now we can see all these input fields are one below the other. Right now let's target the footer. So let's create a comment footer, and we want these elements to be one below the other. So if you go to our HTML file, here we can see we have the footer, and in the footer we have the wrapper division. And in the wrapper division we have the left division and the right division. So let's set the flex direction to column for this wrapper. So let's go ahead and type footer wrapper, and let's type flex direction to column. And if you go to the footer wrapper, let's see what else we have added to our desktop version. So here we can see we have set the align items to center. So let's go ahead and set the align items to flex start so that it is aligned to the left. So here we will just go ahead and type align items to flex start. So now we can see that everything is left aligned. Let's add some gap between these elements. So let's add a gap of let's try 30 pixels, and this is how it looks. Now let's display all these links one below the other. So it is inside this right division. So let's go ahead and type footer right, and let's set the flex direction to column, and let's add a gap of 30 pixels, and this is how it looks. So with that we have completed making our website responsive. Now the last thing we need to do is make this hero section responsive, and we need to also add some JavaScript to display the menu items when we click on this menu icon. So we will do that in the next video. Now before starting with our responsive hero section, let's make some changes to the desktop version. So here in the desktop version, we can see that the font size seems a bit too large. So let's fix that. Let's go to our CSS and let's go to the nav, and here in the nav, let's set the font size to 1 rem, and I think that looks good. Let's also change the font size of this logo. So right now it is 1.5 rem. Let's change it to 1.125 rem, and I think that looks alright. So now the next thing we will do is even if you scroll down, the nav bar should still be fixed at the top. So for that we need to make some changes to the CSS and the HTML. So first of all, let's go to the HTML, and what we will do is let's go to the nav, and here we can see that the nav is inside a wrapper. Now let's change this into a different class. Let's type nav wrapper, and we will add this nav inside this nav wrapper, and let's end the div over here, and here let's start the wrapper division for the header. So now if you go back here, we can see that the nav is inside the nav wrapper and everything else is alright. So let's go back and let's style this nav wrapper. So let's go to style.css file, and here let's type nav wrapper, and let's go ahead and set the position to fixed, and let's set the z index to 100. Let's set the top position to 0 and the left and the right position to 0. And now if you scroll down, we can see that the nav is at the top. Let's also add a background color. So it's the background color, and let's set it to RGBA 0, 0, 0 and 0.7. And let's also add a blur. So let's the backdrop filter, and let's set it to blur 1.125 rem. Right now let's target the nav, and this nav is inside this nav wrapper. So here for the nav, let's add a max width, and let's set the max width to 75 rem, which is the max width of the wrapper as well. And let's bring it to the center. So let's tap margin inline, and let's set it to auto. And let's also add a padding. So let's tap padding, and let's set the padding to 1.125 rem for top and bottom, and 1.5 rem for left and right. So this is how the nav bar looks. So I think that's basically it with the nav bar of the desktop version. Let's go to the nav bar of the smartphone version, and here let's decrease the padding a little bit. So let's scroll down, and let's go to the media query of the smartphone version. So here for the nav, let's go ahead and add a padding of 0.5 rem top and bottom, and 1.5 rem left and right. So this is how it looks. Right now the next thing we will do is we will style the image. So here we can see that when we reduce the width of the browser window, the image cuts off at the right side. So let's fix that. So for that we need to go back to the HTML file, and we need to make some changes over here in our markup. So here inside this hero we have this image overlay and this image. So we need to add both of this inside a container division. Let's give it a class of hero image container, and let's add both of these elements inside this hero image container. Right now let's go ahead and style this hero image container. So here inside the tablet version, let's go ahead and type hero image container, and let's set the position to absolute. Let's set the right position to 0 and the top position to 0, and let's set the width to 100 viewport width, and let's set the height to 100 viewport height, and we'll set the overflow to hidden so that anything outside this hero image container is not visible, and we'll also add pointer events to none so that we are not able to click on the image. So this is how it looks right now. Now let's go to the desktop version and let's see whether we have any problems in this. So the desktop version looks alright, we don't have any issues. So let's go back to the tablet version, and the next thing we will do is we will style the images inside the hero section. So let's tap hero, and we have an image with the class of hero image, and we also have hero image overlay. Now for both of this, we have already added a left value. So if you go to our inspector, here we can see for the hero image, we have set a left value of 25.5 RAM. So let's unset this value from here. So let's type left of unset, and let's set the right value to negative, let's try 7 RAM, and let's set the height to 100 viewport height and top to 0, and this is how it looks. Now even if we decrease the width of the browser window, we can see that the hero image stays there on the right side. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to bring this image up. So if we go back to our inspector, and if we take a look at our hero image container, we have set a position of absolute, and if you go to the hero, which is the parent division, we have set a position of relative over here. So we need to remove this position relative from here, and we need to set this hero image container relative to the body. So let's remove the hero position relative from here, and we need to change it to static. So let's do that. Let's go back over here, and let's target the hero section, and let's set the position to static. And now we can see that it is on the top. Now let's target the hero overlay image, and if we take a look at it over here in the inspector, here we have the image overlay, and let's change the right value. Let's try right of 0, and this looks alright. So let's go ahead and change the right value of the image overlay. So let's tap hero image overlay, and let's set the right to 0, and this is how it looks. Now let's style this achievements section. So let's tap hero achievements, and let's set the height to 26 RAM, and let's set the width to 26 RAM as well, and let's set the top to 30 RAM, and let's change the font size of these elements. So let's type hero achievements S3, because here we can see we have S3 inside these achievements. So let's set the font size to 1.125 RAM, and for all the paragraph, so let's type hero achievements P, let's set the font size to 1 RAM, and this is how it looks. And I think that looks alright. So with that, we have styled the hero section of the tablet version. Let's go back to the desktop version, and here it looks alright, and this is how it looks on tablet version. And let's take a look at the other elements, and we don't have any problems over here. So let's go to the smartphone version over here, and this also looks alright. Let's see whether we need to make any other changes. Let's scroll down, and here we have the achievements section, and we can go ahead and set the width to 100% for the achievement section on smartphone version. So let's type width 100%, and that looks alright. So the smartphone version looks alright. Right now, the last thing we will do is we will make this nav menu icon work. So for that, we need to go back to the HTML, and we need to create an element for that. So let's create a div with the class of mobile nav menus, and in that we need to add a close icon, and after that we need to add the menu items. So I think we can copy this menu items from here, and let's paste it over here. Right now, let's get the close icon from heroicons.com. Right here, I'm in heroicons.com, and let's search for close, and let's copy this icon from here. Let's copy the SVG, and let's paste it over here. Right now, let's go back to our CSS, and let's start styling this. So let's go to the top of our media queries, and here let's start adding the elements. So let's tap mobile nav menus, and here let's tap mobile nav menus. Let's set the position to fixed. Let's set the display to grid and place items to the center. And let's add a background color of var dark color. And let's set the z index to 200 so that it's above the other elements. And let's set the height to 100 viewport height and width to 100%. Right now, let's target the close icon. So let's type mobile nav menus close icon, and let's set the position to fixed. Let's set the width to 36 pixels, and Let's set the top to 12 pixels and the right to 24 pixels. And let's set the cursor to pointer. I think the width is a bit too much. Let's change it to 30 pixels. I think that looks alright. Right, now let's target the menu items inside the mobile nav menus. So here we can see we have this menu items division. So let's type mobile nav menus, menu items, and let's set the display to flex direction to column, and let's add a gap of 20 pixels. We'll also set the text transform to uppercase. Right, now the next thing we will do is, by default we will set the position of this mobile nav menus to the right side of the screen. So here let's type transform, translate X 100%, and let's add a transition of all 500 milliseconds, and let's add a cubic bezier of this value 0.075, 0.82, and 0.165 and 1. And when we want to display it, we will just add an active class. So let's type mobile nav menus dot active, and here we'll just type transform, translate X 0. Right, now the last thing we need to do is we need to make this menu icon work. So for that, let's go to the JavaScript file and let's add some JavaScript for that. And here let's type mobile nav menu. And the first thing we need to do is target some of these elements. So we need to target the menu icon, which is over here with this class of menu icon. And then we need to target the close icon, which has a class of close icon. And we also need to target the mobile nav menus because we need to add and remove the active class from this. So let's target those three elements. I'll just type const menu icon equals document.querySelector menu icon, and let's type const close icon equals document.querySelector, and let's type close icon, and then let's type const mobile nav menus equals document.querySelector mobile nav menus. Right, now let's add an event listener to the menu icon. So let's type menu icon dot add event listener, and let's listen for the click event. And here we'll just add the active class to the mobile nav menus. So let's type mobile nav menus dot class list dot add active, and let's target the close icon, and let's type dot add event listener, and let's type click. And here let's go ahead and remove the active class. So let's type mobile nav menus dot class list dot remove active. Right, now let's test whether this works. So let's click on this menu icon, and we have this mobile menu items displayed over here. Let's click on this close icon, and it disappears, and everything is working all right. So with that, we have completed designing the responsive version of our website. Let's go back to the desktop version and let's see whether we have any problems. So everything seems to be all right. Right, the first thing we need to do is go to netlify.com and create a free account, and you can also log in with your GitHub account. And once you log in, you will find this page right here, and you have to go over here to sites, and you will see all the previous deployments over here. Now here on the right side, we can see that we have this option called add new site, and you can click on that, and we have different options, and you can deploy your site with these different options. But I'm going to show you an easier way, which is just drag and drop your folder over here. So let's go to our website folder. Right, so here we can see that I have this folder called public, and in that we have all these files in our website. So we have the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. We also have the images over here inside this folder. Now the only thing you need to do is drag and drop this public folder, which is a parent folder, into this space right here. So let's do that. And here we can see that our website was published. And this is how quick you can deploy your website using Netlify. Now you can just go ahead and click on Open Production Deploy, and you can find your website over here. So just check whether everything looks all right. And let's also check out this accordion, and everything is working all right. Let's check out the mobile version. And it is also working all right. And now if you go back to our Netlify dashboard, here we have a lot of different options. So you can click on these options and click on deploy settings, and here we can go ahead and do a lot of things. So let's quickly go ahead and go to site details over here, and let's change the site name. So let's click on change site name, and you can just add your site name over here. So I'll just type LB portfolio. Let's see whether it is available, and it is already taken. I'll just type 1, 2, 3. And now we can see that our website is hosted on lbportfolio123.netlify.app, and if I open this, we can see that our website is being displayed. Alright, now the next thing we need to do is update the form. So if you go back to our website, here we can see that if you scroll down, we have this contact form over here, and when we click on the send message button, nothing happens because we haven't added the functionality. So if you go over here to the Netlify dashboard, and if I click on forms, here the first thing we need to do is enable form detection. So let's click on enable form detection, and we need to add an attribute called Netlify to the form tag, and then you'll be able to get the data from the form to your Netlify dashboard. So let's click on this learn more about forms in the docs, and if you scroll down, we will have a code example. So this is the example. Let's click on form with Netlify attribute, and here we can see that we need to add a name to the form, and we need to set the method to post, and we need to add this Netlify attribute. So let's do that real quick, and let's deploy it again. So here in our HTML, let's scroll down and go to the form. Here we have the contact section, and in that we have the form. So here in the form, we need to add a name. So let's type name equals contact, and let's set the method to post, and let's add the Netlify attribute over here. And then let's go back to the documentation, and here we can see we need to add the name to the input fields. So let's add the name over here. So here I'll just type name equals full name, and let's type name equals email over here. And here for the text area, let's type name equals message. Let's go back and let's see what else we need to do. Let's scroll down, and for the button we need to set the type to submit. So let's copy this, and let's go to the button, and here let's add the type of submit. Right now let's go ahead and update our website. So to update the website, you have to go over here to deploys, and you can simply go ahead and drag your updated folder over here. So let's open the folder. So this is our updated folder. Let's go ahead and first of all, let's check whether we have saved the file. So we have saved it. So let's go ahead and drag and drop this public folder over here, and it is being uploaded. And now we can see that the website was published. And let's go back to our website and reload, and let's just inspect, and let's see whether the changes are added. So let's right click over here and go to inspect, and let's go to the form, and here we can see that we have the form method post and name contact, and all these things are updated. So let's go ahead and add some details. I'll just type john@email.com, and I'll just type awesome website, and let's click on send message. And here we can see it says thank you, your form submission has been received. So let's go back to our website, and now let's go to our dashboard, and let's see whether we have the details. Let's go back over here, and let's click on forms, and let's click on this contact, and right now we don't have any submissions. I think that's because it has detected it as some spam data. So let's add some data that looks real. So let's add some name over here, Michael D, Michael123@gmail.com. This is an awesome website, I would like to contribute. And let's click on send message, and it is being submitted. Let's go back over here and reload, and it is still not being displayed over here. That's because I think the spam detection is on point. So let's click on this verified submissions drop down, and let's click on spam submissions, and now we can see that we have the submissions displayed over here. So let's open one of these, and here we can see we have the full name, we have the email, and we have the message. So it will also display the IP address and the time of your message. So that's how you can use the form feature inside your Netlify website, and that's basically how you can deploy your website on Netlify for free. Now we're going to use a library called GSAP for the animation, and this is the homepage of the library. And let's go ahead and first of all get the CDN links of this library. So let's go over here to docs, and let's go to installation. And here if you scroll down here, we can see that we also have this guide on installing GSAP. But let's scroll down and let's go over here to CDN. And here we have the CDN link. And if you scroll down, we also have some plugins that we can import along with GSAP. So here there are a lot of different plugins. Let's select scroll trigger because we're going to use that. And let's scroll down, and here we have the link that we can copy. So this is the GSAP library. And after that, here we have the plugin link. So let's copy these lines of code, and let's go ahead and go to our source code, and let's scroll down, and just before the script for the main.js, let's paste these 2 lines of code. And with that, we have GSAP in our website. Now we can use it directly in our JavaScript file. So let's go to the main.js file, and let's scroll down, and GSAP basically is a library where we can control the start and the end state of an element. So first of all, let's add a comment. I'll just type animations, and we can simply type gsap.to, and here we can first of all get the element name. So we can add the selector of the element. So we can just type h1 for now. Let's just test whether it is working. And here we need to add the properties inside this object. So let's type opacity, and let's set it to 0. Let's set x, which is the transform translate x, and let's set it to -40, and let's set the duration to 3 seconds, and let's see whether this works. Let's go to our website, and now we can see that the animation is working. So if we reload this page, we can see that the animation is working. The text is moving to the left with the opacity being set to 0. Now this is one way of adding animations, and in our hero section, we need to animate all these elements, and they need to be in a specific order. So if we add the animations in this manner, we need to add the animations for the other elements as well over here. So we can just type it over here and add the selector of the other element, and you need to go ahead and change the duration and also add a delay so that one element is displayed after the other. But there's an easier way to do all of this using a GSAP timeline. So let's do that. So we can just go ahead and create a const, and let's call it hero timeline, and we need to set it equal to gsap.timeline. And now we can use this hero timeline for the animation. So we can just type hero timeline.to, and here first of all we can add the element. So for example, if you want to animate the logo, we can just type nav, and that we have a division with the class of logo. So let's go to the nav, and here we can see we have this nav, and in that we have this anchor tag with the class of logo. And after that we can go ahead and add our properties. Now there are 2 ways of adding GSAP animations. We can add the to and the from over here as well, or we can also add the initial value in the CSS and add just the to in the GSAP. So let's add the initial values in CSS for the hero section. So let's go to the CSS file, and let's scroll down, and here let's create a comment. I'll just type GSAP animation initial state hero section, and for the nav logo, let's go ahead and set the transform translate y to -10 pixels, and let's set the opacity to 0. And now if we go back, we can see that the logo is not being displayed. But here in the GSAP, we can simply go ahead and type opacity of 1 and y of 0, which is transform translate y, and let's add a duration of 0.8. And now if you go back, and if I reload this page, we can see that the animation is working alright. And the same way, let's go ahead and add the initial state for all the elements that we need to have the animations for. So let's go to our CSS file, and the next thing we need to do is target the anchor tags inside the menu items. So if you go to our HTML file, here we can see that we have this division of the class of menu items, and in that we have the anchor tags. So let's type menu items A, and let's set the transform translate y to -30 pixels. Let's type opacity of 0, and then let's target these social media icons. So it is inside the socials division, we have these anchor tags. So here let's type socials A, and let's type transform, and for this one we will add a scale, and let's set it to 0.3 at the beginning, and let's set the opacity to 0 as well. And then let's target the hero image container, which is this division right here. So let's type hero image container, let's set the opacity to 0, and transform translate x to 30 pixels. Right now let's target the h1, so let's type hero h1, and let's type opacity 0, transform translate y of -30 pixels. And for the subheading also we need to have the same thing. So here we can see we have this division with the class of subheading. So let's type comma over here, and let's type hero subheading, and then we have the button. So for the button we have this btn class. Let's type hero btn. Let's type transform scale of 0.7 and let's set the opacity to 0. And then we have the achievements section. So we have this class of achievements. Let's go ahead and type achievements. Let's type opacity of 0 and translate y of 30 pixels. And then for each of the achievement inside the achievements division, let's type achievement. And here let's type opacity of 0 and translate y of -4 pixels. Now if you go back to our hero section, we can see that nothing is being displayed over here. So now we need to add all the two values inside our GSAP. So here let's go ahead and continue writing the code for the hero timeline. The next thing we need to do is we need to go outside over here and we need to type .to. And here let's target the menu items. So let's type nav menu items A. And for the properties, let's go ahead and type opacity of 1. And let's set the y value to 0. Let's add a duration of 1.5. And let's also add an ease of elastic dot out, and let's type 1, 0.8. This is basically an easing function which is defined already in GSAP. And now if you go back here, we can see that we have all these animations. Now we want to have all these menu items displayed one after the other. So for that we can use stagger. And let's type 0.16 for the value. And here we can see all these menu items are displayed one after the other. Alright, now we need to display this a little earlier. So here after this curly braces, we can add negative equals and we can add a value. So let's type 0.9. And this is how it looks. So I think that looks alright. Right now let's move on to the hero h1. So here we can see for the hero h1, we have set the opacity to 0 and translate y to -30 pixels. So let's reset these values. Here after this parenthesis, let's go ahead and type .to. And here for the selector, let's type hero h1. And for the properties, let's go ahead and type opacity of 1, y of 0. And let's set the duration to 1.8. And this is how it looks. Let's also add a negative delay. So let's go ahead and type minus equals 1.8. So this is how it looks. Right now let's target the social media icons. So for that we have set transform and opacity. So let's type .to .socials A. Now here let's go ahead and type opacity of 1. And we have set the scale over here. So let's reset the scale. Let's type scale of 1. And let's add this same easing function. So let's copy this and let's paste it over here. And let's set the duration. And let's set it to 1.6. And we also need to add the stagger over here because we need to display them one after the other. And here let's type negative equals 1. So this is how it looks. And I think we can change the easing function a little bit. So let's go back. And here instead of 0.8, let's type 0.3 and let's see how it looks. So I think that looks alright. Right now let's move on to the subheading. So for the subheading we have opacity and translate y. So here let's type .to hero subheading. And here let's type opacity of 1, y of 0, duration of 1.6, and here let's type negative equals 2.3, and let's save this. And this is how it looks. Let's zoom out a little bit so that we can see everything. And this is how it looks. Right now let's target the hero button. So let's type .to hero btn. And for the button we have scale and opacity. So let's type opacity of 1, scale of 1. Let's copy the easing function. And let's set the value to 0.3. And let's add a duration of 0.1. And here let's type minus equals 2. Right, now let's add the animation to the image. Now for the hero image, we have set opacity and translate X. So let's type .2 hero image container. Let's type opacity of 1, X of 0, duration of 1.6, and here let's type negative equals 3. Right, now let's display the achievements section. Now for the achievements, we have opacity and translate Y. So here let's type .2 achievements, and let's type opacity of 1, Y of 0, duration of 1.4, and here let's type negative equals 2.8. And let's also display the achievements inside the achievements division. So let's type .2 achievement, and for this let's reset the opacity and translate Y. So we can just copy these two from here and let's paste it right here. And for the duration, let's type 1, and we need to display each of these achievements one after the other. So let's add a stagger and let's set the value to 0.16. And here let's go ahead and type negative equals 2. So this is how the achievement section looks. And with that, we have added the animation to our hero section. Right, here's my source code, and here let's go ahead and first of all let's target the about image. So here we have this image on the left side, and if we go to our index.html file, here if you go to the about section, here we can see that we have this section with an ID of about, and in that we have this division with the class of left. So let's target this left division. So here we're going to use GSAP dot from to, and here we can add the from and the to states. So first of all we need to target the element, so let's type hash about dot left, and here in the first curly braces we need to add the from state, and in the second curly braces we need to add the ending state. So here in the beginning let's set the X to -40, and let's set the opacity to 0, and here let's type X 0 and opacity of 1, and here we will also add a scroll trigger. So here we can see that in our HTML file we have already linked the CDN of scroll trigger. So let's type scroll trigger. Now what scroll trigger basically does is that when that specific element is in the viewport, then it will notify GSAP, and we'll be able to add some animations when this element comes into view. So let's go ahead and set the trigger, and the trigger will be the same element about left, and we need to add a start position. So let's type top 80%. Let's also add an end position, and let's type top 10%. And we will also use a value called scrub, and let's set it to true. And I'll explain to you these things in a bit, but first of all let's check whether it works. So let's save this, let's go back, and let's reload this page, and now let's scroll down, and we need to check whether the about image is being displayed from the left side when we scroll down. So here we can see that as we scroll down, the about image is being displayed and it is moving to the right side. It is working correctly. So if we go back, here we are setting the scrub to true, and it means that as we scroll down, this animation runs. So if we stop in the middle, then the animation also stops in the middle. So it is how the scrub works. Now I'll also explain to you the start and the end position. So for that we will just use markers, and let's set it to true. And now we can see that these are the markers. So this is a scroller end and scroller start. So when the start of the element reaches the scroller start, the animation begins to run, and when the end reaches the scroller end, the animation stops. So this is how this start and end values work. Right, now let's go ahead and add animations to this description. So for that, let's go ahead and create a new GSAP, and let's type dot from to, and let's target the description. So here we can see we have this division with the class of description. So let's target that. So let's type hash about description, and here let's set the opacity to 0 in the beginning, and for the end state let's go ahead and type opacity of 1, and here we will not use the scrub. We'll just run the animation when the element is displayed on the screen. So let's add a duration for that, and let's set the duration to 2, and here let's add a scroll trigger, and in the scroll trigger we will add the trigger, and let's set the trigger to about description, and let's set the start position to top 80%, and now let's go ahead and see whether this works. So let's reload this page, and now if we scroll down we can see that the animation is working. This about description fades in. So here we can see if we scroll down we have the about description being displayed. So now let's go ahead and target all the headings. So for all these H2s we need to have a specific animation. Now in GSAP we have an option to select multiple elements. So let's create a const and let's call it heading 2, and let's type GSAP, and you need to type utils dot to array, and here we can just mention the selector of the element. So let's type H2, and here let's target all the H2s. So here let's loop through all the H2 which we are storing inside heading 2. So let's type heading 2 dot for each, and for each of the H2 I'll just call it H2, and here let's add a GSAP from to, and here let's select the H2 which we get from here, and here for the first state let's type opacity of 0 and x of -40, and here for the end state let's type opacity of 1 and x of 0, and let's set the duration to 1. Let's add a scroll trigger, and in the scroll trigger let's go ahead and set the trigger to H2, and let's set the start position to top 80%. Right now let's go back and reload this page, and we'll just remove this marker. So let's remove markers from here, and let's go back, and now if you scroll down here we can see for the H2 we have this animation. Let's scroll down and let's see whether we have the animation for all the other H2s. So here also we have the animation, here also we have the animation, and everything is working all right. Right now let's add the animation for the services image. So let's go ahead and type GSAP from to, and here we have an ID of services, and let's go back to the HTML and let's see what is the element called. So here we have this division with the class of image. So let's target that, and here for the initial state let's type opacity of 0 and scale of 0.9, so it will scale up. And for the next state let's go ahead and type opacity of 1, scale of 1, and let's set the ease to elastic dot out 1 and 0.3, and here let's add a scroll trigger, and in the scroll trigger let's add the trigger, and let's set the trigger to services image, and let's set the start position to top 80%, just like the other elements. And let's go back and let's see whether it works. So let's reload this page, and now if you scroll down here we can see that we have this animation and the duration is too low. So let's go back and let's add a duration over here. So let's type duration and let's set it to 2, and this is how it looks. Right now let's add animations to this accordion. So let's target all these accordion items. So if you go back to the HTML, here we can see we have this accordion item divisions inside the accordion. So let's target those. Let's type GSAP from to, and let's target accordion item, and let's set the opacity to 0 and x to -40, and for the final state let's type opacity of 1, x of 0, duration of 1, and scroll trigger, and let's type trigger of accordion item, and let's set the start to top 80%. And now if you go ahead and reload this page, we have the animation, but we want all of these to be displayed one after the other. So for that, let's go ahead and add a stagger, and let's set the value to 0.16, and this is how it looks. Right now, let's go ahead and target these brand logos. So let's go back and let's type GSAP from to, and for the selector, let's go ahead and select all the img tags inside brand logos. So let's type brand logos img, and here let's go ahead and type opacity 0, scale 0.9, and let's add one more curly braces. Let's type opacity of 1, scale of 1, duration of 2, and let's also add a stagger of 0.16. Let's also add the ease, and let's set it to elastic dot out 1 and 0.3, and let's add the scroll trigger, and here let's set the trigger to brand logos img, and let's type start of top 80%, and let's go back and let's reload this page, and this is how it looks. Right now, let's target all these project divisions over here. So let's go back to the HTML, and here we have this division of the class of project. So let's target these divisions. Let's type gsap dot from to dot project, and first of all, let's set the opacity to 0 and scale to 0.97, and here let's type opacity of 1, scale of 1, duration of 2, and ease of elastic dot out 1 and 0.3, and let's set the stagger to 0.16, and let's also add the scroll trigger, and let's set the trigger to project, and let's set the start marker to top 80%, and this is how it looks. Right now, let's scroll down and let's target these timeline items. So if you scroll down, here we can see that we have these timeline items over here. So let's add some animations to that. Let's type gsap dot from to, and let's type timeline item, and for the initial state, let's type opacity of 0 and scale of 0.9, and here let's type opacity of 1, scale of 1, duration of 2. Let's also add a stagger of 0.16. Let's set the ease to elastic dot out 1 and 0.3, and let's add a scroll trigger, and let's set the trigger to timeline item, and let's set the start to top 80%. You can change these values and make the animation work as you like. So this is how it looks. Right now, let's target all the buttons, and let's add some animation to all the buttons in our website. So here we can see inside the sections we have the buttons, and in the hero section also we have a button, but we'll not include that because we have already added some animations to the button inside the hero section. So let's target all the buttons inside the section tags. So for that, we will just type const buttons. Now let's type gsap dot utils dot to array section btn, and let's type buttons dot for each, and I'll just call each of the buttons btn. And here in this arrow function, let's go ahead and first of all type gsap dot from to, and here let's type btn, and for the initial state, let's type opacity of 0, and for the ending state, let's type opacity of 1, and let's set the duration to 2, and let's add a scroll trigger, and let's set it to trigger button and start of top 80%. Let's save this, and here we can see we have the button. If we scroll down, here we can see that the animation is working for the button. So let's check all the buttons. Let's reload this page. Let's scroll down, and here we can see we have this animation. The button is fading in. Right now, in the same way, let's also add animation to all the paragraphs. So let's copy these lines of code, and let's paste it down here, and here let's type paragraph, and let's type section P, and here let's type paragraph, and here instead of btn, let's name it P. Let's do it over here, and here as well. Now let's go back, and here we can see we have the animation for all the paragraphs inside our website. Now let's reload this page and let's scroll down. Now the problem is that the animation is being added to this service section paragraph as well. So if I reload this page and if I scroll down over here, we can see that initially the paragraph is not being displayed correctly. So let's exclude this paragraph from the animation. And for that, here in the selector, you can just type :note. And if you go back here, for the accordion item, we have this paragraph with the class of accordion content. So we don't want to include this accordion content. So let's type note.accordion content. And now if you save this, and if I reload this page, and if I scroll down, we don't have the animation for the paragraph inside the accordion, but for all the other paragraphs, we have the animation. And with that, we have completed adding the animation to all the sections in our website. Now you can simply go ahead and update our Netlify website with this updated code by just dragging and dropping the updated folder inside the Netlify dashboard. Alright, so here I have logged into my Blogger dashboard, and the theme that I'm using right now is called Contemporite. Now if you want to add this design directly to the home page, then you have to create a custom theme and create the theme according to this design. And I already have a video on creating a custom Blogger theme, but in this video we'll just create a page in our Blogger website, and we will add this design to that page, and then we'll just redirect the home page to that particular page. So whenever the user goes to the home page, so if they go to this page right here, livebloggerofficial.blogspot.com, then they'll be redirected to the custom home page that we create over here. So let's do that. Let's go over here to pages, and let's create a new page, and I'll just call it home page. And now if you go ahead and click on publish and confirm, and if I click on this view button, here we can see this is our page. And right now we don't have any content inside our page, but we have all these other elements that we have in this page. Now we want to remove all of these things, and we just want to have this design right here. Now to hide all these other extra elements, we need to go ahead and target the elements and hide it in the CSS. So you can just go ahead and select, for example, if you want to hide this popular post section, you can just right click over here and go to inspect. And here we can see that this is the popular post widget. So you can just select this ID of popular posts 1 and just set the display to none. And now we can see that it is hidden. So in this way, you have to hide all the other elements that you see over here inside this page. Now I have already shown you how to do this a couple of times in different videos. So in this video, I'll just copy and paste the code that we need for hiding the elements in the Contempo theme. And I'll also leave the link of the code in the description of this video. So first of all, let's create a style tag to add all the CSS. And let's paste the CSS over here. So this is basically targeting all the other elements in our theme. And we are just setting the display to none. And we are also setting the margin to 0 for some of the elements. And the padding also is being reset. And we have other CSS properties to reset the values as well. So now if we update this page, and now if you go back to our home page, and if I reload this page, now we can see that nothing is being displayed and we have this blank canvas. Now we can go ahead and add our design to our page. So let's go ahead and create a comment over here. I'll just type end of Blogger CSS. And now we can add our CSS of our design. So let's go to our source code and let's go to the CSS file and let's copy all the CSS from here and let's paste it right here. And now let's go ahead and paste our HTML. So let's go back to our source code and let's first of all copy these links of these fonts from here. And then let's go ahead and copy all the HTML. So let's copy from here till here. And let's paste it over here. And then lastly, we need to add the JavaScript. So let's create a script tag for that. And let's go back to our source code. Let's go to the main.js file. Let's copy all this JavaScript and let's paste it over here inside the script tag. Alright, now the next thing we need to do is we need to update the links of the images. So now if you go ahead and click on update, and if you go to the home page and reload, here we can see that our design is being displayed, but we don't have the images being displayed. So for that we need to update the links of the images. But before that, let's go ahead and make some changes over here. The first thing we need to do is we need to change the color of this text. So right now if you go ahead, we can see that we have this white color over here for all the text, but here we don't have the white color, we have a gray color. So for that, let's go ahead and go back over here and let's go to the CSS, and here let's go ahead and let's target all the S2, the S3 and the paragraph, and let's set the color to white, and let's click on update. Let's go back over here and reload, and now we can see that we have the correct color for all the text. And for this one we don't have the correct color, so let's see what's the problem. Let's right click over here and go to inspect, and this is basically this division with the class of project description. So let's target that as well, project description, and let's update. Let's go back and reload. Now we have the correct color over here. And now for this section we have this white color as well, so we need to change the color of this heading and this paragraph inside the process section to black. So for the process section we have an ID of process for the section. So here we can see we have the section with an ID of process. So here let's type hash process, and let's type h2 hash process p, and let's set the color to black, and let's click on update. Let's go back over here and reload, and now we have the correct color for the text. And the last thing we need to do is update the images. So for that we will use a service called Cloudinary, and we will upload all the images inside Cloudinary, and we'll just get the links from there and add it over here inside our code. So you can just go over here to cloudinary.com and create a free account and just log in. And once you log in, you can just go to media library and go to folders, and here you can create a folder for your project. So let's create a new folder, and let's call it portfolio website. Let's click on save, and let's open this folder, and let's add our images over here. Alright, so these are all the images inside our project. So let's drag and drop them over here. And here we can see all the images have been uploaded. Now let's go ahead and get the links and paste it inside our code. So let's go ahead and first of all, let's get the hero image, and it is this one right here. So let's click on copy URL, and let's go to our HTML, and here in the HTML let's paste the link of the image right here. And now if you go ahead and update this, and if you go back to our home page and reload, here we can see our image is being displayed. So in this way we need to add all the other images. So I'll just quickly go ahead and do that. Alright, so I have updated the links of all the images over here inside our HTML, and here in the CSS also we have this background image. So let's do that. It is inside this process section. So let's scroll up and let's go to the CSS, and let's type hash process, and here in the background image URL let's change it to the BG section JPG image. So it is this image right here, section BG. Let's copy this and let's paste it over here. Right now let's go ahead and click on update, Let's go back to our home page and reload. Now we can see that everything looks alright. Let's scroll down and let's see whether we have the animations as well. And this image doesn't have the correct width, so we'll fix that as well. And everything else is working alright. And we need to fix the width of this image as well. Alright, so let's fix the width of these images. So let's right click and go to inspect and let's see what's the problem. And here for this image, we have set the width and height to 160 pixels. But I think there are some styles added by the theme. So here we can see for post body img, we have a max width of 100%. So we need to remove that. So we need to remove the max width 100% and we need to type unset. And this will fix the issue for the other image as well. So let's copy this selector. Let's go back over here and let's go to the top over here. And let's paste it, and here let's type max width of unset. And I think we also need to change the color of this text right here. So we have white color for the text. So let's right click and go to inspect. Let's see what is the selector. So it is accordion header. So let's also target the accordion header. So here let's type accordion header and let's click on update. Let's go back to our home page and reload. And now we can see that everything looks alright. Let's also check out the image, and the image is looking alright. Let's take a look at the image of the about section, and it is also looking alright. Let's take a look at the mobile version, and this is how the mobile version looks. So we don't have any problems over here. Right now the next thing we will do is we will redirect to this page when we go to the home page. So let's copy this URL from here. We'll just copy from here p/homepage.html. So let's copy this URL. And when we go to the home page, which is this page right here, we need to redirect to that page. So let's go to the settings. And let's scroll down, and here we have this option called custom redirects. So let's open that and let's add a new one, and from blank we'll just add this page right here, and let's click on OK. And here we can see that this is our custom redirect. From home page we are going to this page right here, and let's click on save. And now let's go to our home page and let's reload. And here we can see that we are redirected to this page right here. So whenever we go to the home page, we'll be redirected to this page, and this will be our new home page. So that's basically how you can add this custom design to the home page of your Blogger website. Alright, so that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.